Chapter 304. Leah paused and leaned his body forward slightly. He whispered into Gu Mingming's ear. Then there's only one way left. Gu Mingming blinked her eyes and asked, what way? Leah pursed his lips and his slender fingers brushed across his chest. He said in an inviting tone, eat me before the snow melts. What nonsense are you talking about? Gu Mingming stood up immediately. But because she stood up too quickly, she felt a little dizzy. Her vision blurred and she almost fell. Leah quickly caught Gu Mingming and smiled. I finally got to hug you again. It's enough for me to hug you like this once before I die. Li's smile was very gentle, so gentle that it made one feel hopeless. Gu Mingming's heart was throbbing in pain. She calmed herself down and stabilized her hands. She pushed Leah away and said, is there something wrong with you? I haven't even finished eating the food in this cave. Why would I eat you? Do you think I'm a skeleton spirit? Leah tilted his head and touched his heart as if he was wronged. He said, but I heard that the heart of a snow fox has the effect of prolonging one's life. Gu Mingming was about to hit him when Leah touched his stomach again and said, the flesh on my stomach is also very smooth and tender. It tastes much better than normal wild beasts. And I'm a third-level orc. If you eat me, your body will definitely be much stronger than it is now. That way, you won't fall sick after playing in the snow for a while. Gu Mingming wanted to cry, but no tears came out. She looked at Leah and then at Elvis and sneered. Are you sure one is a wolf and the other is a fox? Neither of you is a fox wearing a wolf's skin, or is a wolf wearing a fox's skin. Why the hell are you both so eager to let others eat you? Isn't it good to live well? Look, this world is so beautiful, right? Leah caressed Gu Mingming's face gently, his eyes filled with greed. He wanted to take one more look at her, one more look, as if he wanted to carve her into his eyes. He said with deep affection and loneliness, if you don't want me anymore, this world will not be beautiful at all. Rather than living in a purgatory filled with torment, I might as well fuse my flesh and blood into your body, and become one with you, using another method to protect you once. At least I can die a worthy death. Leah paused and recalled the time when he was fooling around by the stream, before he confessed to Mingming. She thought he was going to eat her up, and begged for mercy in his arms while crying. He was vexed. Was he not affectionate enough? Why would this little fellow think of a romantic atmosphere as a bloody and violent scene? Thus he deliberately scared her, and she really closed her eyes and waited for death. She was obviously trembling violently, but she still pretended to be unafraid of death. Back then and now it was so similar. Once upon a time, you begged me not to eat you. You said you wouldn't choose between food and partners. Leah said while caressing Gu Mingming's neck. That was the place where he once planted strawberries. Li's smile was filled with the warmth of memories. His gaze overlapped with that day, looking at Gu Mingming seductively and affectionately. Using the same tone as that day, he said, since you don't want to choose, let me choose for you. Leah slowly lifted his silver hair and revealed his snow-white neck to Gu Mingming. He looked at Gu Mingming with his perfect side profile and said, it's all right, it won't hurt. Eat me up. Then we will fuse together and we will never be separated again. Gu Mingming was stunned. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little baby from Xiaoxiang Academy, Maxiangying, for the evaluation ticket, thank you. Chapter 305. Gu Mingming remembered that Leah had said that to her before. But at that time, sighing, Gu Mingming pushed Leah away and said, stop fooling around, you know I won't eat you. Leah was very dejected, as if he was very disappointed with Gu Mingming's unparalleled ability. He patted his stomach and muttered to himself, it should be delicious, why don't I like it? Gu Mingming was really speechless. First it was Barit, then Elvis, and now Leah was the same. What was wrong with the males in the beast world? The boundless world was rich in resources, and there were so many things to eat. Why did they have to suggest others to eat them? Did they think they were mantises? Gu Mingming returned to Elvis's arms and looked up at Leah, saying, sit down, let's eat something together. Leah nodded and sat cross-legged beside Elvis. He placed his elbows on his knees and his hands on his cheeks. He looked at Gu Mingming and smiled, saying, are you trying to feed me until I'm fat before eating? Gu Mingming raised her little fist and made an action as if she was going to hit someone, saying, "Don't provoke me, I just gave birth and can't take fright. Don't keep telling me scary stories about people eating people. If you scare me until I lose my milk, I will fight you for my sons." Leah shrugged his shoulders and finally avoided this topic. Gu Mingming scooped a big piece of meat from the pot and passed it to Elvis, saying, "You took care of the 5 of us for an entire day and I didn't see you eat anything. I must have tired you out when I was pregnant previously, right?" Elvis did not reject her, because winter was really about to end and the food stored in the cave was enough for them to eat until the rainy season when their prey would come out. In order not to waste food, Elvis always chewed the bones and swallowed them, because he realized that cooked bones were much easier to digest than raw ones. Rather than throwing them away, he would rather eat them. So most of the time he would secretly pick up the leftover bones from Gu Mingming and eat them, so as to save as much food for Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming was also used to Elvis's way of eating bones without spitting out the bones, so she would usually choose those with more meat and less bones for Elvis to eat, afraid that he would suffer from indigestion and end up with stones. Elvis swallowed his food and kissed Gu Mingming's little face. "Compared to your suffering, how can my suffering be considered as any hardship?" Gu Mingming smiled, feeling very touched. She had an older sister who worked as a white-collar worker in a company before she got married. Her monthly salary was less than 10,000, and she was very confident wherever she went. Not long after they got married, she got pregnant. Her husband wanted her to stay at home to raise the baby, and she agreed. However, once she quit her job, it would be difficult for her to go back to work. When she was pregnant, she had to wait to give birth. After giving birth, she had to wait to go to kindergarten. After kindergarten, she had to wait to go to primary school. However, before the child could go to primary school, her husband had cheated on her. The reason was that he was fed up with his children's crying and his wife's complaints. He even asked his sister, which man would want to go home to see an old woman every day? Little Missy said that she had given birth to a child for him, so how could he be so inconsiderate towards her? The man snorted disdainfully and asked, "Which woman doesn't know how to give birth? This is your duty." That time, the sister hugged the child and gulped down beer, crying to Gu Mingming, "I'm not afraid of suffering with him. I'm not afraid of suffering for him. I'm afraid that he can't see everything I've done. I don't want to live a luxurious life. I just want some words of comfort. That's all." Aside from the topic, thank you to my QQ reading baby, by Aning Lu for your 999 reading points, and thank you for your message. Chapter 306. That night, Gu Mingming did not return home. Instead, she stayed in the hotel with her drunk sister and helped her take care of her young son. But the next day, Gu Mingming was woken up by the police. A bone-piercing cold wind blew in through the open window. And that window was the exit that the sister had used to escape from this hopeless world with her child. Gu Mingming sighed. She did not know why she would suddenly recall this memory. She just felt a little disappointed. She looked up at Elvis and said, "Thank you for seeing everything I did. Thank you for comforting me." Elvis sharply sensed that Gu Mingming's emotions were not right. He kissed her lips lightly and asked, "What's wrong? Something on your mind?" Gu Mingming shook her head and smiled. "Maybe it's the legendary depression." Elvis looked at Leah, who shook his head to indicate that he had never heard of it. He did not know what to do either. Gu Mingming patted her face to cheer herself up. Then she smiled and said, "All right, I'm fine. Don't worry." Elvis hugged Gu Mingming and gently stroked her hair. He comforted her gently. Don't be depressed, don't worry. You have me." Gu Mingming nodded and said, "I know, I have a good hubby." Elvis accepted Gu Mingming's compliment with a smile. The word hubby was especially pleasing to the ears. "Hey, my good hubby, shouldn't we be doing something serious now?" Gu Mingming asked with a smile. Elvis looked at Gu Mingming's lower body thoughtfully. Then he shook his head firmly and said, "Although I really want to, your body has not recovered yet. I can't do it for now." Gu Mingming's melancholy mood was instantly broken by Elvis. She picked up her chopsticks and knocked on Elvis's head, saying, "What are you thinking about?" I'm talking about serious matters. Elvis said seriously. It's serious matters. But Xiaoming, you really need to rest. Gu Mingming really did not know whether to laugh or cry. She shook her head and said, I know I need to rest. The serious matters I'm talking about are not the unserious matters you are thinking about. I'm talking about our 4 babies. We can't possibly call them first, second, third and fourth every day, right? Isn't it time to give it a proper name? Elvis looked at Gu Mingming and thought seriously for a while before replying. Whatever, you can call me whatever you like. Gu Mingming really wanted to spit blood on Elvis's face. She complained. Can you be more attentive? He's your son after all. What do you mean by whatever? Elvis said. My name was randomly chosen by me after I became an adult. Leia, what about you? Leah thought for a moment before replying. I snatched my name from someone else after I became an adult. The corners of Gu Mingming's lips twitched as she asked, Is there a need to fight over names? Leah nodded and said, I think his name sounds nice, so I killed him and his name belongs to me. If one day someone likes my name, they can also challenge me. Many people are like this. Elvis added, Yeah, I snatched 2 names in the past too, but after snatching them, I felt that they didn't sound good, so I just gave up and randomly picked one for myself. I've met people who tried to steal my name before, but they never beat me up. Gu Mingming's face was filled with despair. It's just a damn name, what's there to snatch? If you don't believe me, you can just go to the village entrance and shout dog leftover. Even if there aren't 10 people, at least 8 will respond to you. According to the logic of the beast world, the strongest dog leftover in the village has to strangle all the other dog leftovers in the village to monopolize the name dog leftover. Aside from the topic, thank you to the QQ reading baby, Lazy Dashuang, for the 399 reading points. Chapter 307. Gu Mingming looked at her 4 sons with snot dripping from their noses, and fell into a deep dilemma. What if the name was too nice to hear? Would he be kidnapped like the son of a rich man or something? Scenario. XXX, ask your mother to hand over your name, or else I will bite you to death. Gu Mingming shook her head, feeling like her life was about to collapse. Sighing, Gu Mingming turned to look at Elvis and held his hands with both her hands. Hubby, you will protect our sons, right? Elvis looked at the 4 little ones and said in disdain, Male cubs can protect themselves, I will only protect you. Gu Mingming nodded. That's good. You protect me and I will protect my sons. If anyone dares to snatch my sons' names in the future, you will help me to send them flying, all right? Elvis was a little dizzy from Gu Mingming's words, but he nodded instinctively. All right, I will listen to you. Gu Mingming felt more at ease and heaved a sigh of relief. Just as she was about to say something, she turned to look at Leah. She thought for a moment and asked, Leah, I heard that you are quite close with the beast deity? Leah sneered. You are more familiar with the beast deity? I heard that the beast deity is your beast father. Gu Mingming slapped her thighs in joy. That's right. The beast deity is my beast father, and also my son's grandfather. Who dares to snatch the beast deity's grandson's name? I will go home and complain to my dad and ask him to take care of these demons. Gu Mingming was completely relieved at that thought. She said in a refreshed manner, Come, let's brainstorm and name our 4 little ones. Leah shrugged. Do I have the right to name my children? Gu Mingming thought for a moment and smiled awkwardly. She had never heard of a midwife naming their children. Their parents were all around. It would be weird to ask a doctor to name their children, right? But it would also be awkward to say no. So Gu Mingming said, Sure, of course you can. Tell us what names you want to give your children. If it sounds good, we can also adopt it. Leah pointed at the 4 little ones and said, Mingming, want, Leah, mate. Gu Mingming's awkwardness had already broken through the heavens. She smiled at Leah and said, Mingming is my name, Leah is your name. Do you mean to ask the eldest to kill me and the third to kill you? Leah shook his head and said, Gu Mingming is your name, so he can be called Mingming. As for Leah, I'm willing to give this name to him. I'll snatch someone else's name. Hey, what do you think of Barit's name? Nothing much. Gu Mingming facepalmed and said, I think your naming skills are just so. You better forget about names. Leah was not angry and nodded his head to indicate that he had no objections. Then, he turned his body seductively and leaned against Gu Mingming, wagging his tail like a pet. Gu Mingming lowered her head and asked, "What are you doing?" Leah blinked his long and narrow eyes at Gu Mingming and said, "A beast pet should look like a beast pet. Since you're not going to eat me, then I'll just be a vixen." Gu Mingming rolled her eyes and could not be bothered with him. She turned to look at Elvis and asked, "What about you? Do you have any good suggestions?" Elvis thought for a moment and pointed at the four little ones and said, "Scram further away, scram further away, scram further away, scram scram." Aside from the topic. Chapter 308. Gu Mingming deeply felt Elvis's disdain towards the four little ones. She started to reflect, did she neglect Elvis after giving birth to her sons? But it had only been a day since she gave birth to her sons. Did Elvis need to hold such a deep grudge? Elvis saw that Gu Mingming did not seem to be very satisfied with this name, so he thought for a while and said, "From me, wife, beside, scram." Gu Mingming patted Elvis's shoulder and said, "Don't worry, even if I have sons, I will still love you the most. After all, I already have 4 sons, but only 1 husband, so you don't have to show such strong animosity towards them. Especially the 4th, it was so hard for me to give birth to him, on account of me suffering so much. Can you not ask him to scram every time you open your mouth?" Elvis was silent, then looked at Gu Mingming with a grievance and said, "Now you actually lied to me for them." Gu Mingming looked like she was wronged and said with the most sincere eyes, "I didn't. When did I lie to you?" Elvis pointed at Gu Mingming's chest angrily and said, "You have never fed me like this before, but you let them eat for a long time today." Gu Mingming almost choked to death by her own saliva, and her face instantly turned red as she punched Elvis. Then, she looked awkwardly at Leah, who was lying on her knees and looking up at her. Leah seemed to be thinking about something. Then his lips curled up and he flipped over to lie on his back, asking Gu Mingming, "Do you still lack sons? The ones with big furry tails?" Gu Mingming laughed coldly and thought to herself, "Damn it, you still wanted me to call you daddy yesterday, and now you want to call me mommy? What kind of seniority is this?" Gu Mingming slapped Lee's face and said, "I am tired, I need to sleep for a while. I will think of the names after I wake up." As Gu Mingming said, she stood up from Elvis's arms and walked towards the bed. She did not even take 2 steps before Elvis pulled her from behind. Gu Mingming turned around and saw Elvis looking at her, as if he was looking at Chun Shimmy. She said with resentment and hatred, "How dare you say you are not lying to me? You used to hug me to sleep in the past, but now you are abandoning me to hug them." Gu Mingming had no choice but to return to Elvis's side and pounce into his arms. "I'm not going to hug them. I'm going to hug you." "Yes." Elvis coolly responded with a single syllable, but the corners of his lips could not help but curl up, his eyes filled with pride. Gu Mingming really wanted to say that she had never seen anyone fight with his son to such an extent. How could he persuade her to accept Leah with this kind of behavior? When that time comes, wouldn't there be a Liaozhai's wolf demon versus the fox demon, at home every day? Just as Gu Mingming was thinking, Elvis had already walked to the side of the bed. He lifted his leg and kicked the cushion that the 4 little ones were sleeping on. The 4 little ones were like cocktails that slid across the bar counter in a bar, and were kicked to a corner together with the cushion. Elvis laughed coldly. If he had to say a line, it would definitely be, "Small fry fighting with me?" Gu Mingming's heart ached, and just when she wanted to stretch her neck to take a look, Elvis looked at her with a face full of grievance. Gu Mingming thought that since the 4 little ones did not move at all, they must still be sleeping soundly and should be fine. Thus, she could only smile embarrassedly and lay in Elvis's arms obediently, being an obedient little woman. Elvis then nodded his head in satisfaction. Then he said to Leah, "You sleep on the outside and block her. Don't let Xiaoming fall onto the ground." Leah smiled and nodded his head. Then the 2 of them sandwiched Gu Mingming in the middle, one on the left and one on the right. Gu Mingming's lips twitched as she thought to herself, Are they working together with the secondary enemy to attack the primary enemy? Are they planning to work together with Leah to fight with my 4 sons for her favor? Aside from the topic. Chapter 309. When Gu Mingming woke up, she finally understood why Elvis wanted Leah and him to accompany her to sleep. This was a 360-degree isolation belt without any blind spots. The 4 little ones were really hungry, but they could not climb over the 2 huge black and white mountains in front of them. Just by getting a little closer, they were either kicked by someone or coincidentally swept by someone's tail, causing them to tumble out. The moment Gu Mingming woke up, the 4 little ones screamed at the top of their lungs with their childish voices. Although Gu Mingming could not understand what they were saying, she could tell from their expressions that they were extremely aggrieved. Their cries for food made Gu Mingming's heart melt into water. "Oh my babies, come to mummy quickly." Gu Mingming kicked Elvis away and arched her butt, pushing Leah to the side. Then, she opened her arms wide and faced her 4 sons with a welcoming posture. The 4 little ones looked as if they had been abducted and sold. When they saw their mummy, they were extremely affectionate. Spreading their 4 short legs, they rolled and crawled into Gu Mingming's arms. They stuck out their pink tongues and licked Gu Mingming's face and neck crazily. Gu Mingming patted their little heads one by one and comforted them. All right, mummy knows that you guys have suffered." Gu Mingming had only slept for 1 night, but she could already feel her breasts swelling up badly. Both sides of her chest had hardened, and it would hurt at the slightest touch. Gu Mingming laid on her side, with her back facing one male who looked aggrieved and the other gloating. She used the beast's skin to cover her body, then unbuttoned the front of her shirt, and carried the 2 who had not eaten their fill in the morning into her arms to feed them. Although Gu Mingming's chest was in excruciating pain because her sons were using too much strength to drink milk, it was obvious that the milk these children drank was mixed with blood. But looking at her sons' tiny bodies and eager looks, Gu Mingming felt that there was nothing that could not be overcome by clenching her teeth. So, even though she was in excruciating pain, Gu Mingming still had a slight smile of relief on her face. Perhaps this was the legendary saying, "Women are weak, but mothers are strong." The 4th brother did not manage to snatch the first prize, and was clearly unwilling. He did not care about anything and wanted to snuggle into Gu Mingming's arms, while the eldest brother bit his hind leg and dragged him back. He used his 2 front paws to pounce on the back of the 4th brother, biting his little ears and then his neck. He did not use much strength, and was clearly playing with him. Gu Mingming poked the leader's head with her finger, gently caressing him from the top of his head to his back, before giving him a light pat on his butt. The boss was so comfortable that he was snoring and twisting his little body was very cute. Gu Mingming giggled at her son's teasing. Seeing that the leader had received his mother's reward, the 4th brother also cried out. Gu Mingming did not even need to guess to know that he was asking for praise, so she did the same and touched the 4th brother. She then turned to Elvis and said, "Look, most of our elders are sensible." At such a young age, she already knew how to look after her younger brother. "You have the demeanor of an elder brother." Elvis glanced at his eldest son who was acting cute beside Gu Mingming, his face full of disdain. As Gu Mingming's head was turned away, she could not see Elvis's expression clearly. She was only immersed in the joy of becoming a mother for the first time. She looked at her eldest son and thought for a moment before saying, "Our eldest brother is a virtuous brother. Let's call him Hutta." The word Ku originally means beautiful jade, meaning that our eldest brother will become a good young master, who is as gentle as jade in the future. When you open it up, it is Wang Ku. With the word Da, it means that he has the virtue of being a king. In the future, he will inherit your mantle and become the next great tribe leader. How about that? Aside from the topic. Chapter 310. Elvis sat behind Gu Mingming and pointed at the leader who was still acting cute. "I like this name, I want to change with him. He is Elvis, I am Hutta." Gu Mingming burst into laughter and turned to look at Elvis, asking, "Snatching a name from your own son? Only you can think of that." Elvis's face darkened. "Didn't you say you love me the most? Not even giving me a name?" Gu Mingming was really speechless at Elvis's way of thinking. He had been persuading her to accept Leah every day, but now he was making things difficult for his son. Gu Mingming knew very well that this husband of hers was always amenable to coaxing but not coercion. So she pulled Elvis's hand and placed it on her waist, playing with his slender fingers while saying, "But I feel that the name Elvis suits you better. And I am already used to it. I will call Elvis when I need help, Elvis when I am bored, Elvis when I miss you, and Elvis when I am angry. If you change your name, I am afraid I will not be used to it." Elvis's expression softened and he held Gu Mingming's little hand, asking, "Do you really think that Elvis sounds better?" Gu Mingming nodded and said, "To me this is the most special name. He carries our memories and my love for you. So this name is unique." Elvis smiled and kissed Gu Mingming's cheek, saying, "If you say it is good, then it is the best." Gu Mingming smiled and asked, "Then are you still going to change your name with Hutta?" Elvis raised his eyebrows and looked at Hutta coldly, saying, "If he wants to be the leader of Saint Nazir, he must first defeat me." "Just him? Humph, wait another 100 years. Gu Mingming scoffed and turned to continue looking at her son. "Baby, what do you think? You will be called Hutta in the future, alright?" Hutta actually did not understand what had happened. He only knew that his mother was very gentle when she called him Hutta. So he cried out happily, making Gu Mingming laugh again. He said he likes it. Elvis translated. Gu Mingming was extremely surprised and turned to look at Elvis, asking, "You can understand what babies say?" Elvis smiled gently, then rubbed Gu Mingming's little head, saying, "To give birth to these 4 fellows, is my Xiaoming really going to be dumb for 3 years? TSK, are you asking for a beating?" Gu Mingming glared at Elvis reproachfully, but her serious expression did not last long before she broke into a smile. She pushed Elvis's arm and said, "Hurry up and say it, don't keep me guessing." Elvis pointed at Hutta and said, "He is a wolf." Gu Mingming nodded, indicating that she knew. Then, Elvis pointed at himself and said, "I'm also a wolf." Gu Mingming blinked her eyes and said, "But at my place, the sounds that newborn babies make are all meaningless. It's impossible for us to understand them." Elvis leaned close to the side of Gu Mingming's face and licked her little earlobe lightly. Then he blew his warm breath on her earlobe and said gently, "Wolves will never make meaningless sounds, never." Gu Mingming's face was filled with tears. Gu Mingming's heart pounded. They were clearly an old married couple, right? They had already given birth to 4 sons, but she could feel that Elvis's hormones were getting stronger by the day. Just by being so close to him, her heart could not stop beating. Aside. Chapter 311. Gu Mingming cleared her throat and pushed Elvis away a little. She swallowed her saliva and secretly heaved a sigh of relief at an angle that Elvis could not see. Then she said, "All right, since Hutta likes his own name, that's great." Next, Gu Mingming patted the 4th brother who was still fighting with Hutta lightly and said, "It's time to give him a name." Gu Mingming thought for a while and had an idea in her mind. But before she said it out, she decided to respect her son's opinion first. So she said to Elvis, "Help me ask the 4th brother if he has any thoughts on his own name. If he has a name he likes, then let's go with it. He doesn't have any objections." Elvis answered on behalf of the 4th brother without even thinking. "You haven't even asked. How do you know he doesn't have any objections?" Gu Mingming pouted, dissatisfied with Elvis's perfunctory reply. Elvis laughed and used his finger to poke the 4th brother's head. He said coldly, "The weak don't have the right to decide their own fate. Whatever you want him to be called, he will be called. If he doesn't like it, he can just change it on the day he defeats me." Gu Mingming facepalmed. If she had learned higher mathematics better, she could have calculated the size of her son's psychological trauma. However, the 4th brother's reaction was not as hurt as Gu Mingming had expected. Instead, he was full of vigor and vigor. He straightened his neck and howled at Elvis. If not for the fact that his voice was too childish and his appearance was too adorable, he would have looked very imposing. Elvis sneered and raised one of his eyebrows, saying, "All right, I'll wait." Gu Mingming was in a completely dumbfounded state. She had the misconception that her husband and son were using a different dialect to communicate with her. She could not bear to pat her son. So Gu Mingming patted Elvis's arm and asked, What are you two talking about? Can you bring me along? Elvis used his chin to point at the fourth brother and said, This fellow said that he will defeat me soon and asked me to wait. Gu Mingming frowned upon hearing that. She asked to confirm again, He really said that? Elvis nodded. Gu Mingming sighed and looked at the fourth brother sternly saying, Baby, you can't talk to daddy like that. Good children shouldn't contradict their parents. Otherwise, their parents will be very sad. Fourth brother sat on the side of the bed with his two front legs supporting his body. He tilted his head and howled at Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming turned around to look at Elvis, who automatically translated. He asked you what is a father, what is a good child, what is rebutting, and what is sadness. Gu Mingming was tickled by her son's silly look and burst out laughing. She laid in front of the fourth brother and looked at his little face, saying, So, you only know what a baby is and what a mother is. The fourth brother howled twice and used his little claws to rub his face randomly. Gu Mingming guessed that he was probably trying to say that she was right. Gu Mingming thought about it. He was just a day old and his eyes had not even opened yet. How much could he know? So she patiently explained, I am your mother, and my husband is your father. He is brave, upright, kind, and considerate. He will hold up the sky for us and let us live freely without worrying about being hurt. He is the only person in this world who will never betray us. Daddy is very tough and very noble. So you can't talk to him like that. Aside from the topic. Chapter 312. Huda and the fourth brother tilted their heads and looked at Gu Mingming, quietly listening to her. They did not make a fuss or run around, but just looked dazed, as if they did not understand what Gu Mingming meant. Gu Mingming continued patiently, You and Papa are my most important family. I love you very much, so if you make Papa angry, I will be very sad. If I am very sad, I will cry. Do you want to see Mama cry? Ow ow ow. Together with the other two who were drinking milk, the four little ones shook their heads and howled in unison. Gu Mingming giggled from their teasing. She kissed them one by one and said, Babies who don't make their mama cry are good babies. Ow ow ow. The four little ones continued howling. Gu Mingming turned to look at Elvis, who translated. They said, They will be good babies. Gu Mingming felt extremely comforted and hugged the four little ones in her arms, kissing them again and again. The second and third brothers were basically full, so Gu Mingming carried Huda and the fourth brother back into her arms, letting the second and third brothers play at the side. Leah had already gone out to prepare food, so it would not be long before there would be a supplementary meal for them to eat. The eldest brother leaned against Gu Mingming's stomach and drank milk quietly, while the fourth brother kept howling as he ate, but his voice was very muffled and could not be heard clearly. Gu Mingming patted the back of the fourth brother and said, Don't talk when you are eating, you might choke. Ow ow ow. The fourth brother opened his mouth and howled a few times at Elvis before continuing to eat. Elvis placed his leg under Gu Mingming's neck to make her more comfortable, and used his tail to support Gu Mingming's waist, so that she did not need to use her own strength. He pinched Gu Mingming's shoulders and translated. He said he wants a name more impressive than Huda. Gu Mingming smacked her head and said, I was so focused on educating the children that I forgot about naming them. Sorry, it's Mama's fault. The fourth brother was drinking milk and could not answer Gu Mingming. He remembered that his mother told him not to talk while eating, so he held it in and shook his head to express what he meant. He believed that his mother would understand. However, his mama did not understand at all. Let me think. What should we call our fourth son? As Gu Mingming spoke, she caressed the fourth brother's back. She thought for a while and said, The fourth brother has the strongest physique among the four children. One look and you can tell that he is the leader of the family. How about Kanwu? The character can refer to the use of force to quell disputes, and Jinwu referred to the use of war to stop war. If we can convince people with reason and rule the country with virtue, that would naturally be the best. But if others want a foot after taking an inch, we are not weaklings that can be bullied by others. If they want a war, then we will fight and stop the war with war. How was it? My little Kanwu? Ow ow ow. Kanwu used his two front claws to protect his food, taking the time to respond to Gu Mengmeng in his busy schedule. Without waiting for Gu Mengmeng to turn around, Elvis translated. He said it's very good, he likes it. Gu Mengmeng smiled in satisfaction and nodded the leader's head, calling, Huda. Ow, boss responded in a childish voice. Gu Mengmeng patted the little butt of the fourth brother again and called, Kanwu. Ow ow, the fourth brother shook his, but in an extremely flashy manner, and wagged his tail happily. Aside from the topic. Chapter 313. After deciding on the first and fourth brother's names, Gu Mengmeng turned to look at the second and third brother. These two younger ones were much more obedient than the other two. They were sitting in a row, waiting to be named. Gu Mengmeng stroked her little head and said, My second brother has extraordinary looks and is worthy of the word Xian. But Emperor Xuanyuan's Xian was also like this. The name is too heavy and will affect one's luck. How about this? In any case, the word Xian also refers to the Xiangong star in the sky. Let's add a pond in front of the word Xian, implying that my second son is the reflection of the Xiangong star in the pond. The stars in the water are also stars. In my mother's eyes, they are very bright. Okay? Roar, 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 second brother puffed out his chest, indicating that he was satisfied. Gu Mengmeng smiled and kissed the second brother, then looked at the third brother. She thought for a while and said, The first brother is virtuous, the second brother is handsome, and the fourth brother is strong. But being brave without being astute is just an ordinary man. My son needs to be both wise and brave. Third bro, let's use the word strategy, the word for strategy. Be the brains of the four brothers and cooperate with the other brothers to bring glory to Saint Nazir in the future. Gu Mengmeng thought for a while and said, Adding a jia in front of the word Lu is to give this child some Buddha's heart and Buddha's nature. Or else, if he is harboring evil intentions, he will only be a waste of his intelligence and wisdom. He might as well be a fool. I want my son to put his intelligence to good use, to be a kind-hearted and intelligent person. Gu Mengmeng turned around and asked Elvis, What do you think? How about the name Jiaoyu? Actually, Gu Mengmeng did not consider these things in the beast world. Kindness? What was the point? What was Buddha nature? In this world, there was only the survival of the fittest. But Elvis would never tell Gu Mengmeng these words. Females were supposed to live in a beautiful fairy tale fantasy, and it was the responsibility of males to create and protect this fantasy. So, Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's forehead lightly and said, Whatever you like is good. Gu Mengmeng smiled and turned to look at her son, asking, Baby, what do you think? Do you like the name Jiaoyu? Actually, not only did Jiaoyu not understand Gu Mengmeng's explanation just now, even Elvis might not have understood it. But Jiaoyu remembered that his mother had told him not to go against his parents, or else his mother would cry in sadness. He did not want his mother to cry, so since his mother wanted him to be called Jiaoyu, then he would be called Jiaoyu. So little Jiaoyu nodded and even nudged his head against Gu Mengmeng's palm. He was obedient and considerate towards his mother. Huda Qixien Jiaoyu Kanwu. Gu Mengmeng called out the names of her four sons one by one. The four little fellows were like musicians under the direction of a musician, raising their heads in response when their names were called. The other two stopped drinking milk, and only used their hands to lay on Gu Mengmeng's chest, raising their upper bodies to respond to their mother's call. That's great, my precious sons all have names. Gu Mengmeng smiled brightly and gently. To Elvis, this was the most beautiful scene in the world. Leah carried the meat soup in just in time. After setting up the pot, he scooped a portion of the soup onto a large plate and placed it on the bed. He called out to the wolf cubs and the four little fellows ran to the side of the plate happily to start drinking the soup. There was no need for Gu Mengmeng to demonstrate at the side. Gu Mengmeng was surprised and raised her head to ask, They can understand your words? Leah nodded and said, Yeah, I have always been more talented in languages than the rest and I have been with Elvis for a long time, so I know how to communicate with the wolf cubs. Gu Mengmeng faintly felt that she had discovered something and asked, Then why didn't you just use your language to teach them how to drink the soup just now and insisted on me demonstrating? Leah shrugged his shoulders innocently, then pointed at Elvis and said, Because he wanted to see. Gu Mingming turned around and Elvis was shocked. He rubbed his nose and said, "He was the one who came up with the idea." Aside from the topic, thank you, coward, for tipping 100 points. Chapter 314. 2 weeks later, Kanwu was the first to open his eyes. The son Elvis hated the most had a pair of eyes that resembled him the most. It was the same azure blue, like the sea of stars, captivating people. It was just that this pair of eyes was clearer and more transparent, filled with curiosity and yearning for everything, without the coldness and vicissitudes unique to Elvis. Gu Mingming was overjoyed. She held Kanwu's little face and looked at his eyes carefully, then looked at Elvis's eyes and smiled. "You are really biological children, aren't you two similar? You are the cartoon version, while Kanwu is the Q version. Ah, so loving." Elvis already harbored animosity, and even murderous intent towards this little brat, who caused Gu Mingming to suffer so much during the childbirth process. It was because of him that Gu Mingming suffered a stab to her body, and that stab was personally inflicted by him. At that moment, every drop of blood that Gu Mingming shed laid the foundation for him to despise this son in his heart. Elvis held onto Gu Mingming's waist, grabbed the back of Kanwu's neck, and threw him back onto the bed. Then he used his other hand to hook Gu Mingming's little face and stared straight into her eyes. "One pair of eyes like this is enough. Just look at me, don't look at him." Gu Mingming glared at Elvis. "How can you be like this? That is your biological son." Elvis lifted his chin, the corners of his lips turned downwards. He frowned and did not say a word. Gu Mingming sighed helplessly. This kind of daily struggle between father and son for attention really tired her out both physically and mentally. She could not even play with her son properly. Their father was a vinegar jar. Kanwu just opened his eyes today, and it's his first time seeing us. Can you be more friendly? On account that I fought so hard to give birth to him. Why don't you give me a smile? Elvis's face turned even colder. He glared daggers at Kanwu. You almost lost your life to give birth to him. Gu Mingming used her elbow to poke Elvis's chest. Then may I ask, which brother put them into my stomach? Elvis was speechless. He frowned and lowered his head. Gu Mingming shook Elvis's arm and pleaded. All right, no matter what, isn't it good that our family is safe and sound now? Don't spoil the mood, smile. Elvis was helpless and forced the corners of his lips to curve upwards. But rather than saying it was a smile, it was better to say that he was baring his teeth. It was a very strange expression, as if he was threatening his opponent with a face full of unwillingness. Or perhaps, it was a little like a husky at the dentist's office. Gu Mingming could not help but laugh. She placed her palms together in front of her chest and said in an extremely exaggerated tone, "So handsome." Elvis was amused by Gu Mingming. His gaze was always gentle when it met hers. Only then was Gu Mingming satisfied. She leaned into Elvis's arms and said, "Isn't this good, a family harmonious and beautiful?" Elvis caressed Gu Mingming's head and kissed her hair. He said in a helpless and doting tone, "As long as you're happy, I'll listen to you." Gu Mingming skipped to the side of the bed and carried Kanwu, who had just been thrown onto the bed. She kissed his little face and then placed Kanwu on Elvis's head. She smiled and said, "Is this the legendary fatherly love as heavy as a mountain? Hubby, to be honest, you look super stalwart and manly with Kanwu on your head." Elvis really did not like Kanwu, but he treasured Gu Mingming's smile. So even though he was unwilling, he did not throw Kanwu down. But he was willing, but it did not mean that Kanwu was willing too. A gush of warm liquid flowed down from the top of Elvis's head. Green veins popped up on Elvis's forehead instantly. Gu Mingming had never reacted so quickly in her life. She hugged Kanwu from Elvis's head and protected him in her arms. Then, the cave echoed with Elvis's, "Come over, I promise I won't beat you to death," and Gu Mingming's laughter and pleading for mercy on behalf of her son. Aside from the topic, this is the end of the explosive updates. All my babies, remember to join the group and participate in the activities. Please refer to the announcement in this article for the details of the activities. Also, after today's update, Oneone's VIP group will be officially opened. After the activities, the method to join the VIP group will be announced in the group. After joining the V group, There will be no need to go online to look at meat. Susu will directly send the document to the group. Also, from today onwards, there will be no more side events in the group. After all, side events are benefits for the babies who support Susu. Susu's meat. Not everyone can eat it, right? Chapter 315. Among the four sons, the third Jiaoyu's eyes were the most similar to Gu Mingming's. They were coffee-colored and looked a little like amber. Moreover, Jiaoyu's eyes were bigger and rounder than Gu Mingming's, making him look more innocent and adorable. Because of this pair of eyes, Jiaoyu was the only one among the four sons who could receive a smile from Elvis. 5 weeks later, Elvis and Leah unanimously agreed to let Gu Mingming win all four sons. This made Gu Mingming very, very resistant. Whose child can only drink milk for a little more than a month? It's normal for us to feed them until they are 1 year old. Even if the situation doesn't allow it, we should at least feed them for a full 8 months, right? Gu Mingming held Elvis's hand and fought for her sons. Little Jiaoyu was lying on Elvis's shoulder. He howled twice, but no one knew what he was saying. But Gu Mingming immediately said, "Look, our sons already said that just a little more than a month is too little. This is abuse, inhumane abuse." Elvis looked up and met Gu Mingming's eyes. He replied seriously, "I am a wolf and I don't have any humanity." Moreover, Jiaoyu said that they have already started to grow teeth and can eat the meat cooked by Leah. It doesn't matter if they are weaned. Gu Mingming looked at Leah doubtfully and asked, "Really? Jiaoyu really said that?" Leah nodded, indicating that Elvis was telling the truth. Elvis's face darkened. "I won't lie to you." Gu Mingming carried Jiaoyu down from Elvis's shoulders, turned around and secretly tapped his little nose. She lowered her voice and said, "Mummy is helping you fight for your welfare. Why did you change sides?" Elvis was stunned. Elvis stood up and hugged Gu Mingming's waist from behind. He rested his chin on her neck and said gently, "Because this fellow has half of your blood, so he has humanity and a conscience. He knows that squeezing Mummy for nutrition is wrong. As males, they should rely on themselves to survive." Gu Mingming shrugged her shoulders and said unhappily, "What do you mean by relying on themselves to survive? Is there something wrong with you?" Leah struck up a conversation at the right time. "They have already started to grow teeth. If they don't stop breastfeeding soon, they might accidentally scratch your skin. In order to protect you, they will habitually eat with their gums, which will hinder the growth of their fangs. In the future, if they encounter danger, fangs that are not sharp enough may kill them." But Gu Mingming wanted to retort, but she suddenly realized how weak her rebuttal was. Yes, she and Elvis could protect the little wolves now, but could she protect them forever and not let them be independent? What was taken for granted in the modern world had become spoiled here. Gu Mingming fell into deep thought, feeling a little down. She didn't know what she was feeling melancholy about. She just felt that her son wasn't as dependent on her anymore. Jiaoyu howled twice in Gu Mingming's arms. His childish voice was especially lovable. Gu Mingming kissed his little head and said, "You guys don't need a mother so soon?" Jiaoyu's face turned red. Jiaoyu wagged his tail and stuck out his little tongue to lick Gu Mingming's face. Then he tilted his head and looked at Gu Mingming. He did not say anything, but Gu Mingming could feel his concern. "Are you comforting Mummy?" Gu Mingming smiled and said, "Mummy is too useless. She actually let a 5-week-old baby comfort her." "Ow wow!" The other 3 little ones also gathered around Gu Mingming's feet. Their front paws clung onto her calves as they howled in a childish manner, as if they were saying, "Mummy, don't worry, we won't leave you." Aside from the topic, "Come babies, the quiz is starting. Please listen to the question." Chapter 316. In the 3rd week after the little wolves were weaned, the snow-sealed cave entrance started to loosen. Gusts of cold wind blew in, bringing with it a chill but no longer piercing to the bone. Elvis carried Gu Mingming and walked to the cave entrance. With a seemingly effortless push, the snow sealing the cave entrance scattered outwards like a plate of loose sand. Actually, the scene that Gu Mingming was looking at was not aesthetically pleasing. It was completely different from the scene of early spring. Instead, the unmelted snow had divided St. Nazaire into many ravines. Although there was no pollution from car exhaust and the melted snow was still white and clear, Gu Mengmeng did not have any intention of stepping out of the cave. However, only Gu Mengmeng did not want to step out of the cave. It was the first time the four little ones saw the situation outside the cave. Everything was too novel to them. Without waiting for Gu Mengmeng's instructions, the four little ones had already dashed into the snowy water. The snowy water was ice cold, but it was not an obstacle to them. Although their fur was not as thick as Elvis's, they could still withstand this level of cold. Whether it was the smell of the air or the touch of the snow beneath their feet, they all made the little ones extremely excited. The four little ones chased and played like four little lunatics. "Babies, come back quickly, it's so dirty," Gu Mengmeng shouted. But why would the four little ones, who had gone crazy from playing, care about her? They had long become wet, dirty cats in the snow. They looked, just like a husky playing in the mud. Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis resentfully and frowned, saying, "I suspect that you have the bloodline of a husky, but you are actually a husky disguised as a wolf, right?" Elvis was helpless. Although he still did not know who a husky was, it was obviously not a good word, because Gu Mengmeng would only have such thoughts every time he made a fool of himself, or when the four little ones were too mischievous. "I'll go catch them back." Elvis shook his body and transformed into a wolf. He dashed into the snow and bit the back of Kanwa's neck in an instant. He muttered something with his throat, and the other three little ones immediately lowered their heads, not daring to act rashly again. They followed behind Elvis with their tails tucked between their legs, and walked back obediently. Gu Mengmeng was very curious, so she asked Leah secretly, "What did Elvis say to them?" Leah pretended to be in deep thought and dragged out the last syllable, for a long time. Then, instead of answering, he asked, "What benefits would I get if I betray Elvis? After all, he's the first partner of the family, and I'm just a pet. What if he gets angry and kills me?" Gu Mengmeng placed one hand on Li's shoulder and looked at him with an expression of, "I surrender to you. Can we not talk about the beast pet? Can't we just be normal friends? Ordinary friends?" Leah savored those 4 words before turning his head. "I will not betray the first partner of the family for an ordinary friend. I will be chased out." Gu Mengmeng was speechless. In the end, he still classified her as a beast pet. As he spoke, Elvis had already returned. He transformed into a human, and threw Kanwa on the ground. He wrapped his arms around Gu Mengmeng's waist and said, "I told them if they don't listen to my wife, they can scram out of my cave." Gu Mengmeng facebombed. She should have thought of that. How could Elvis coax children with gentle words? How could it be right? Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling of Xiaoxiang Academy, Lazy Silkworm Baby and No, for your monthly votes and evaluation votes, and thank you to the little darling of QQ Reading, Big Willful and Wife for their 99 reading points. Chapter 317. In the end, Gu Mengmeng did not manage to hide back into the cave. Elvis transformed into a wolf and shook the black fur on his body. Leah carried Gu Mengmeng onto Elvis's back while he followed behind Elvis. His large tail swept across Gu Mengmeng's back from time to time, in a flirtatious manner. Just as Leah had said, he was dutifully playing the role of a vixen that was allowed by the legal wife. The 4 little ones were forbidden from running around on the snowy ground because of their mother. After all, they were still too young and could not transform like Elvis to get rid of the dirt on their bodies. If their fur remained wet, Gu Mengmeng was worried that they would catch a cold. So Jiaoyu, the only one that Elvis liked, laid beside Gu Mengmeng's legs obediently, near Elvis's shoulder. The oldest, Huda, was carried in Gu Mengmeng's arms, acting cute to his mother from time to time. Second brother Qixian lay on Li's shoulder, his big eyes darting around. Everything he saw was novel and exciting. His 2 front paws tapped and clawed at Li's shoulder, whimpering in a childish voice that no one knew what he was saying. The most mischievous Kanwu was carried in Li's arms because he was really too naughty. He kept wanting to run onto the ground and howled a few times, saying that he wanted to walk by himself. He only restrained himself after Elvis glared at him. He did not dare to make a fuss in the open, but he kept trying to escape from Li's arms secretly. Leah pinched his 2 hind legs and patted his little but lightly with his other hand. He said in beast language, "The level pressure is insurmountable. If you want to escape from my hands, you have to at least wait until you mate. So you better give up. I won't let you do anything that will make your mother frown." Gu Mingming did not understand what he was saying. She turned back to look at Leah and Kanwu. The two of them pretended that nothing had happened and smiled at Gu Mingming pretentiously. Elvis brought the whole family to the platform of the deity's punishment. It was very magical. The surroundings were filled with snowy water, except for this piece of rock which was very dry. Elvis leaped up, and then laid down to let Gu Mingming down. When Gu Mingming carried her 2 sons and jumped down from Elvis's beast body, Leah had already transformed into a fox. He coiled his body in a nursing position, and used his mouth to bite Gu Mingming's clothes, signaling her to sit on him. Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "Today is the day when winter ends. The tribesmen will all be coming over later. You are the tribe's witch doctor after all. You still need some face. Quickly change back." Leah did not force her. He just stood up and shook his body twice. His fluffy white fur looked like he was filming a shampoo commercial. But Leah did not transform into his human form, neither did Elvis. The two of them stood side by side at the edge of the platform of the deity's punishment. They didn't talk to each other, but they looked up to the sky and roared in unison. Howl! As Elvis and Li's cries stopped, the cries of different beasts echoed from afar. Roar! Ao ao! Then, Gu Mingming saw ferocious beasts approaching them one after another. If it was in the past, Gu Mingming would definitely feel very scared. But now she only felt very happy. That was great. Everyone had successfully survived the winter. She had been worried that she would not be able to see many familiar faces again after the beginning of spring. That was great. Aside from the topic, thank you to Xiaoxiang Academy's Baby Sway for giving me 2 monthly tickets, so touched. Chapter 318. Gu Mingming wanted to find someone she was familiar with among the beasts, but to her, everyone's beast form was no different from normal wild beasts. She really could not tell who was who. However, it was easy to distinguish the female sitting on the back of the male beast. From afar, Gu Mingming saw a soft and adorable girl wearing an oversized beast skin dress. She was rubbing her eyes as she sat on the back of a golden cheetah, walking towards them. Gu Mingming recognized that pair of ears, but did not dare to recognize that face. She had a slender waist, long legs and arms that were even slimmer than Gu Mingming's. She had a small oval face and big watery eyes that carried a sleepiness unique to spring. She looked like she was still in love, and when she saw Gu Mingming from afar, a sweet smile bloomed on her face. She waved and shouted, "Gu Mingming, Gu Mingming." Gu Mingming narrowed her eyes and hesitated for a moment before calling out, "You are Sandy?" Sandy pouted, clearly unhappy. She grumbled, "It's only been a winter since we last met. Why do you look like you don't know me?" Gu Mingming could not help but clap her hands and exclaim, "Damn, how did you spend the winter? Did you go to Korea for plastic surgery and liposuction?" Howl! The golden cheetah that was carrying Sandy lowered its head and scratched the ground with its front paws, making a sound that no one knew what it was trying to say. Sandy smiled and hugged the cheetah's head to kiss it. "It's good enough that we survived. Who wouldn't be skinny? Don't worry, I will work harder to eat more this year. This way, I will be fatter next spring." Gu Mingming's mouth twitched as she squatted beside Sandy. She pointed at the cheetah and asked, "This fellow is Bode?" Sandy nodded and said, "Yes, I only have one partner, Bode, who is a cheetah." Gu Mingming asked again, "Why doesn't he transform into a human? Is he pretending to be a naughty cheetah?" Sandy smiled and said, "Although we have more food stored this year than in previous years, it is still not enough to fill their stomachs. It's already not easy for all of them to survive. They don't even have the energy to transform into a human now. But when the tribe leader brings everyone out to hunt and have a full meal, they should be able to transform back by the time they return." Gu Mingming replied with a no, not really understanding, thinking to herself that he was just starving. Just as she was about to say something, The four little ones could no longer hold back their excitement and rushed to Gu Mingming's feet. They circled around her, wagging their heads and wagging their tails as they howled. Gu Mingming patted their little heads and asked, "What's wrong? Didn't you just eat when you left? Are you hungry again?" Roar, 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 the little fellows shook their heads vigorously. "Then what do you want to do?" Gu Mingming felt a deep sense of sorrow. Damn, she actually had a language barrier with her own son. Sandy held Gu Mingming's hand in disbelief. Her eyes widened to an unprecedented degree. She pointed at the four little ones and stammered, Gu Mingming, these are your sons? You gave birth during the winter? You gave birth to him?" Gu Mingming found it rather funny and pulled Jiaoyu, who was lying on her knees, into her arms with one hand. She pressed her face against Jiaoyu's and said, "You are my biological son, I guarantee it. How was it? Don't they look like me?" Sandy nodded her head like a pounding garlic. The admiration on her face had already broken through the horizon. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she was about to lose control of her emotions. She hugged Gu Mingming excitedly and said incoherently, that's great. We finally have cubs." Aside from the topic, thank you to the baby of Xiaoxiang Academy, Orchid Jade Tree for the 4 monthly tickets and 1 flower love you. Chapter 319. The corners of Gu Mingming's mouth twitched, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Why was Sandy's words so misleading? She made it sound like she had given birth to this child with her. Ow ow. Jiaoyu was sandwiched between Sandy and Gu Mingming, almost suffocating. He struggled to escape, but this strong auntie was so strong despite looking so skinny. His struggles were futile, and he could only let out a miserable howl in hopes of attracting his mother's attention. But luckily, Sandy immediately let go of Jiaoyu's cry. She wiped her tears and said embarrassedly, Sorry, I was too agitated. Saint Nazir finally has a nest of cubs. There is finally hope for our tribe." Gu Mingming knew that Saint Nazir was founded by Leah and Elvis. Ever since it was founded, only Nina had conceived a nest of eaglets, but because of Nina's perverted and twisted mentality, this nest of eaglets had all died in her father's hands. And after that, Saint Nazir did not have any more cubs born. Every winter, a batch of male beasts would die, and during the spring beauty pageant, the tribe's first beauty would come forward to attract a new batch of male beasts to the tribe to replenish their numbers. But no one knew how many of these replenishing members would survive the next year. So the cohesiveness of Saint Nazir was not as strong as other tribes with strong reproductive abilities. Because there were only 2 core members in Saint Nazir, Leah and Elvis. The other males who had already mated would follow their females. If one day the female was unhappy and wanted to leave Saint Nazir, the males would definitely follow her. And the males who did not mate would most likely take a liking to a female from another tribe during the beauty pageant the next year, and run off with her. So it was a very important matter to have their own cubs. This meant that the number of core members in the tribe would increase. Of course, it would be even better if they could give birth to a female cub, because if it was a female cub from the tribe leader's family, then her partners would all become the core of the tribe, which was the strongest cohesiveness of the tribe. However, to a tribe like Saint Nazir, which had always been short of manpower, it was already a joyous occasion for them to have these 4 new troops. So Nina could not be blamed for being so agitated. Gu Mingming patted Sandy's hand and said, "Hey, don't be so agitated. Maybe you can give birth to a female cub for our tribe this year?" At that time, how about a betrothal? Sandy tilted her head and asked, "What is a child betrothal?" Gu Mingming waved her hands and called the 4 little ones over. Then she said, "In the future, if you give birth to a male baby, let them become brothers. They can help each other and support each other. If you gave birth to a female," Gu Mingming rubbed her nose and smiled awkwardly, "just let her choose one of our sons that she is satisfied with and prioritize him." Gu Mingming also did not want to arrange her son's marriage so early, but the ratio of males and females in this world was too abnormal. She could not possibly let her son be a bachelor forever, right? It would be fine if he was always single, but what if he met a perverted female like Nina? Rather than that, Gu Mingming was more willing to let her son be with Sandy's girl. At least they could get to know each other. Sandy was a gentle woman, and her daughter was no worse. Moreover, they were from the same tribe. If they really gave birth to a female cub, Gu Mingming would naturally teach her well as a daughter-in-law. Aside from the topic, thank you to Xiaoxiang Academy's baby, 1308071-6417 for the 3 monthly tickets. True love indeed. You left all the tickets for me, right? Chapter 320. All right. Sandy agreed readily and smiled sweetly. If I can really give birth to a female cub, I will let her choose your son as her first partner. Gu Mingming laughed happily and pushed her son's butts. Hey brats, aren't you going to greet your future mother-in-law? Mother-in-law? Sandy tilted her head and asked. It means the mother beast of one's female partner. We call it mother-in-law over there, Gu Mingming explained. Then what should the father beast of the female partner be called? Sandy asked. Father-in-law, Gu Mingming answered without hesitation. Sandy tapped her chin and thought for a while before saying, So Elvis has to call Leah father-in-law now. Ugh. Gu Mingming choked on her own saliva. She laughed dryly. Your burning heart for gossip. Can't you think of something else? Sandy chuckled and said, Seeing that you and Elvis have finally become partners, I feel much more at ease. You don't even know how worried I was that you would leave Saint Nazaire. I even thought that if you were to leave, no matter where you go, I will follow you. Although Saint Nazaire is really important to me and my life here has always been stable, I don't want to leave you. Sandy hugged Gu Mingming's waist and said coquettishly. Gu Mingming patted Sang's back as if she was coaxing a child and said, Not leaving, not leaving. I am still waiting for my son to marry your daughter. The 4 little ones were completely uninterested in things like mother-in-law, especially when this mother-in-law occupied their mother the moment she came. Usually, their mother would hug them, but now, she was hugging this auntie with monstrous strength. TSK, so disgusted. The 4 little ones snorted and ran to one side to play. Seeing that the 4 little ones had left, Sandy then sat up straight and asked softly, Where is Elvis's mark on your body? Can I see it? Gu Mingming tugged at her collar and revealed her collarbone. A black wolf stood there arrogantly, with its head held high and chest puffed out, looking valiant and formidable. Ah, it's already so close to the heart. He must be overjoyed, right? Sandy nudged Gu Mingming lightly in a flirtatious manner, then glanced at Elvis from the corner of her eyes. She covered her mouth and giggled. Gu Mingming pursed her lips and said, Actually, I feel a little guilty. It would be great if I could imprint it on my heart. Now, I always feel like I'm being disloyal. Sandy shook her head in disagreement and said, His imprint wasn't branded on your heart, which proves that he didn't work hard enough. How can you be blamed for this? Gu Mingming smiled but did not retort, because she knew that the concept of the beast world was different from hers. No matter what she said, Sandy would not be able to understand. So Gu Mingming changed the topic and asked, What about you? Where is your mate mark? Why haven't I seen it before? Sandy turned around and moved the tube top upwards. Gu Mingming saw Bode's mark where the tube top was originally covering. On my back. It's also very close to the heart. Sandy nodded and said, Of course he's my first partner after all. If you don't like him, why would you choose him? Gu Mingming nodded then asked, What about the others? Don't you have 8 partners? Sandy nodded and lifted her beastskin skirt. On her thighs were a bear and a wolf. Gu Mingming knew the bear was a dolly, the one who was almost beaten to death by Nina's partners before winter. Gu Mingming also knew the wolf, but she could not remember its name. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little babies from Xiaoxiang Academy. QQ3A811FB6E1042, Feng Shuer, Drunk Ming Qianro, and Mao was for their monthly votes. Love you all, Mwax. Chapter 321. Gu Mingming was just about to gossip about Sandy and her new partner, Bailey, when she saw another female walking towards them from the bustling crowd of beasts. Gu Mingming's lips twitched and she sneered. Why is it that you look like you went through plastic surgery this winter, but this fellow is still as fat and ugly as before? Sandy followed Gu Mingming's gaze and twitched her lips. She's like this every year. I wonder how many of her partners she has eaten this year. Gu Mingming's hair stood on end and she looked at Sandy as if she had seen a ghost. She eats her partners every year? Sandy nodded and said. To her, partners are like stored food during winter. Therefore, she didn't reject any of the males who expressed their love to her, and accepted them all. But some males don't even have the chance to mate and become food in her stomach. Here look. As Sandy spoke, she used her fingers to count the heads of Nina's family, but Gu Mingming heard that she was not counting, but reading names. After counting once, she said, Quentin and a few first-level orcs who joined Saint Nazir last year are missing. Hearing Sandy's words, Gu Mingming then took a closer look at Nina's partners. Indeed, there was no eagle. Although Gu Mingming could not recognize the male beast in his beast form, Quentin was the only eagle beast in the entire Saint Nazir. What's more, he had the same size as the eagle in the Return of the Condor heroes. Moreover, with Quentin's hands, she could recognize him no matter how hard she tried. And with a glance, Quentin was indeed nowhere to be seen. Gu Mingming went to count again, 28. Nina's partners were only left with 28. Gu Mingming asked softly. Elvis said that every year at the beginning of spring, everyone in the tribe will come out to participate in the first hunt. And no one will stay in the cave to look after the house. Is that true? Sandy nodded as a reply. Gu Mingming asked again. So all her males are here? Sandy still nodded. Gu Mingming felt a wave of nausea in her stomach. She forced herself to suppress it before saying. Elvis said she had a total of 43 partners, and now there are only 28 left. That means she ate 15 of her partners this winter. Sandy counted her fingers and said with some embarrassment, I only know that Nina originally had 43 partners. This is the number that Leah counted. It can't be wrong. But how many are there now, and how many are missing? I don't know how to count, so I can't tell. Gu Mingming patted Sandy's arm and said, She is so perverted. Why are there still males willing to mate with her? Don't you want to live anymore? Sandy smacked his lips and said, Even if they know that they might become her next meal, many males are still willing to exchange their lives for the right to mate with her. After all, if they could get a perfect female to give birth to a powerful cub, in the eyes of the males, even death would be worth it. Gu Mingming sneered and looked at her husband. Thinking of his attitude towards his sons, she really could not agree with Sandy's thinking. Not every male valued their cub, or maybe, they just did not believe that another male's tragedy would repeat itself on them. They always fantasized that they were special, different, and could become someone that Nina cared about, someone important to her. But they did not understand an old saying, a leopard can't change its spots. To put it bluntly, a dog can't change its spots. Nina's nature was selfish and twisted. No matter how passionate her love was, it could not warm her heart that was as hard as a rock. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling of Xiaoxiang Academy, Yuxing 1-2 for gifting 9 flowers. Does it mean forever? So romantic. Chapter 322. As she spoke, Nina had already walked in front of Gu Mingming. She smiled in what she thought was a flirtatious manner, but when her gaze landed on Huda and his brothers, her bean-sized eyes were filled with a viciousness that could not even be contained in the universe. You actually gave birth to wolf cubs during winter? Nina looked at Gu Mingming with a twisted expression. The flesh on her face trembled, clearly filled with anger and jealousy. Gu Mingming did not want to talk to her. She called her sons and pulled Sandy back. Nina did not want to let Gu Mingming leave. She grabbed onto Gu Mingming's arm from behind. Gu Mingming instinctively took a step back and leaned forward. She held onto Nina's wrist and exerted strength from her waist, doing a beautiful shoulder throw. Nina was thrown onto the ground with her limbs spread out. She was in so much pain that she was moaning. Seeing that Nina dared to bully their mother, the 4 little ones bared their teeth and rushed to Nina's side, biting her hand that was grabbing onto Gu Mingming just now. Ouch. Little brats, why aren't you letting go? I'm a precious complete female. How dare you bite me? I'm going to ask my males to kill you. Nina swung her arm with all her might, trying to shake the 4 little ones off. But how could the 4 little ones be afraid when they were angry? If someone bullied their mother, not to mention a fat chicken, even if it was their father, the four of them would still bite him. Gu Mingming stepped on Nina's shoulder, causing Nina, who had just sat up, to fall back onto the ground. She leaned forward and placed her elbows on her knees. She squinted at Nina and asked coldly, "Who do you want to ask your males to kill?" Gu Mingming's expression was especially terrifying. Nina bit her lower lip and did not dare to reply. She was in so much pain that her tears flowed freely. She turned to look at her partners and roared, "I'm being bullied like this and you're just going to stand there and watch." Nina's partners were actually very embarrassed too. Although the four little ones were males, they were cubs after all. And not only were they the cubs of the tribe leader and the messenger of the beast deity, they were also the first cubs of Saint Nazir. They had an extraordinary significance to the entire tribe. They really couldn't bring themselves to do anything to a cub. Moreover, the person stepping on Nina was Gu Mingming. Not only was she a female, she was also the messenger of the beast deity. She was an existence that they did not dare to offend. If the one stepping on Nina was Elvis or Leah, then even if they knew they couldn't win, they could at most risk their lives for Nina. But now, how could they move? If you want to do something for your partner, you can challenge me. Leah was purely there to watch the show. He transformed into a human and stood behind Gu Mingming with a smile, facing Nina's partners who were hesitating but were at a loss of what to do. "Oh, let me introduce myself. I am Gu Mingming's beast pet, Leah." After Leah finished speaking, the entire Saint Nazir fell into a strange silence. Gu Mingming just wanted to slap Leah to death. What he said was equivalent to cutting off her own path of retreat. If Gu Mingming stood out to deny it now, it would be equivalent to abandoning Leah. With his status and reputation, the entire beast world would probably know that he had degenerated to become a beast pet, and was even abandoned. He was betting his entire life, betting that if she still cared for him a little, she would not deny it in front of everyone. But he won. Gu Mingming sighed. In the end, she did not say he's not on the spot. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little baby from Xiaoxiang Academy, Snow on the Streets for the flowers. Chapter 323. What? You actually became a beast pet for her. Nina could not care less about the four wolf cubs that were still biting her on her arm. She used all her strength to push Gu Mingming away and crawled up from the ground, rushing towards Leah to grab his arm. But Leah dodged beautifully and said in disgust, "Don't touch me, Gu Mingming won't like it if you dirty me." "But you already said that you want to mate with me. How can you become Gu Mingming's beast pet?" Nina did not give up and went forward to grab Leah again. Leah frowned and took another step back, replying, "If you come any closer, I will make you my first prey this spring. You also know chickens are originally in the fox's diet." Nina looked at Leah in disbelief, but did not dare to pounce on him again. She pointed at Gu Mingming, but her eyes were looking at Leah. She said in a voice that sounded like she was scratching the wall with her nails, "You are a proper partner after mating with me. Now that Quentin is dead, I can even make you my first partner. I even promised you that I will give birth to a nest of little foxes for you this year, but you actually gave up on me and chose to become a beast pet for her." "I did not give up on you," Leah said seriously. "You were never in my choice of partner. In my heart, the only person who can be my partner has always been my Gu Mingming." "You." Nina was so ridiculed that she could not say anything. The hand that was pointing at Gu Mingming was trembling. Gu Mingming went forward and twisted Nina's outstretched finger. With a cracking sound, Nina's finger was bent into a weird angle along with a scream like a pig being slaughtered, directly sticking onto the back of Gu Mingming's hand. "Didn't I tell you not to provoke me? Huh. On the first day of the new year, I did not look for you to settle the score, but you came to show off in front of me? Are you itching for a beating after being a cat for an entire winter?" After Gu Mingming finished speaking, she flung Nina's hand away harshly and called her four sons back, saying, "Do you use your mouth to bite all kinds of dirty things? Aren't you afraid of having a stomachache? Go play with your future mother-in-law." The four little ones howled in defiance. Sandy picked them up and comforted them. "Be good, don't worry. Your mommy won't lose out. She is Gu Mingming." The four little ones tilted their heads and looked at Sandy, then at their father Elvis, who was quietly standing at a high place and looking down at everything. They felt that Sandy was right. Given how protective their father was of his wife, he would not stand by and watch calmly if the beast mother was in even the slightest bit of danger. Thinking about this, the four little ones quietened down and obediently stayed in Sandy's arms. They imitated their father's face and watched Gu Mingming teach Nina a lesson. However, even though she looked so young and tender, she still wanted to imitate Elvis's expression. It looked a little comical but very cute. Gu Mingming saw that her sons had already hidden far away, so she did not need to worry about accidentally injuring them. She pulled Nina's hair towards her knees and instantly raised her leg, using her knee to knock Nina's neck. Blood instantly gushed out from Nina's nose. Gu Mingming threw Nina onto the ground once again. You were the one who informed the people from Sauter about this, right? I gave you a chance to escape, but you refused to leave. I wanted to let you off this time because you are a female. As long as you stay quietly, I can let bygones be bygones. But you just had to jump around in front of me. You want to kill my sons, right? Let's see if you can live till that day. Aside from the topic, thank you to the big baby of Xiaosheng Academy, Lin Shi, the breeze of the dreamlike mountain for the 99 roses, 50 diamonds and monthly tickets. Chapter 324. As Gu Mingming said, she raised her elbow and used her body's strength to smash Nina, who was pinned on her body and had nowhere to hide. She hit Nina's nose again. Nina howled in pain. Her face was covered in blood and her original appearance could not be seen anymore. Behind Gu Mingming, Nina's partners were already fighting with Leah. Perhaps this was the so-called suppression of strength. Leah did not even transform into his beast form, and he was still able to handle the situation of 1 against 28. Rather than saying it was a battle, it was more like he was toying with them. Gu Mingming was not careless either. In the past, when she beat Nina, it was mostly because she was a bitch and was annoying. Gu Mingming had the intention to teach her a lesson, so she always showed mercy. However, after knowing that Nina had been eating her partner every year, her disgust for Nina had reached its peak. Therefore, when she heard that Nina wanted to kill her son, it was like throwing a lighter into a pile of gunpowder. It would be strange if it did not explode. If someone else said this, Gu Mingming might treat it as a joke that was not very funny and was just scaring a kid. But Gu Mingming did not dare to slight Nina, a person who could even eat her partners without any hesitation. What other perverted things would she not do? For her sons, Gu Mingming had the intention to kill this time. Raising a rock from the side, Gu Mingming aimed at Nina's head and was about to smash it. The rock stopped in front of Nina's face. Gu Mingming looked up and saw Elvis standing in front of her with the rock in his hand, looking down at her. Gu Mingming looked a little disheveled. Her hair was already in a mess and her body was covered in Nina's blood. When she saw Elvis, her eyes were watery. She was the one who kept beating them up, but she just felt so wronged. Looking up at Elvis, Gu Mingming said, "She said she wants to kill our sons." Elvis nodded and took the rock from Gu Mingming's hand and threw it to the side. Then he carried Gu Mingming up from Nina's body and wiped her blood-stained face gently and carefully. He said, "If she has the ability, go ahead and kill them." "Hubby." Gu Mingming's grievances instantly turned into tears as she stared at Elvis in disbelief. But Elvis laughed. He glanced at Nina, who was almost beaten to death by Gu Mingming, with disdain and said, "I don't care what happens to those 4 wolf pups. But if you and your partner dare to make Xiaoming sad." Before Elvis could finish his sentence, he snorted coldly and emitted a strong pressure. In just a moment, everyone around the platform of the deity's punishment, including Leah, felt their knees were so heavy that they could not stand straight. Leah was slightly better off than the rest. He only knelt down on one knee in submission, while the rest were pressed to the ground, unable to move. The weaker ones fainted on the spot. Gu Mingming did not feel anything towards the beast pressure. She just felt that Elvis's cruel and cold expression was so handsome. So she wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck like a little bird and whimpered, "Hubby is mighty." Elvis did not say anything else. He shook his body and retracted his pressure. He glanced sideways at the 4 little ones who were playing around Sandy without a care in the world and raised his eyebrows. Even Leah, an adult 3rd-level beast, could not withstand the pressure, but these 4 were actually fine? Aside from the topic. Thank you to the little baby, Yun Lingfeng from Xiaoxiang Academy for the 5 monthly votes and 1 evaluation vote. Today's update has ended. Continue tomorrow. Chapter 325. Elvis handed Gu Mingming over to Leah to take care of, while he led all the males in the tribe out to hunt, announcing the start of a new year. Leah stopped one of Nina's partners, asking him to bring Nina down to take good care of her, and not to be an eyesore. Otherwise, no one would be able to stop Gu Mingming from throwing stones at her again. That partner naturally could not ask for more, and hurriedly and carefully brought the unconscious Nina away. After Nina left, Gu Mingming then asked unhappily, "Why did Elvis stop me?" Leah smiled mysteriously, and inched closer to Gu Mingming sneakily. "Call me Daddy, Leah, and I will tell you." Gu Mingming rolled her eyes. "Whether you want to tell me or not, I can just ask Elvis when he comes back." Leah sighed in grievance, then suddenly stretched his arm from the back of Gu Mingming's head. His slender palm touched the side of Gu Mingming's face, pulling it towards him, and Gu Mingming's little face just happened to be on Lee's prepared lips. It was just a peck, and Leah quickly let go of Gu Mingming. Then he sighed like a cat that had stolen a fish, and said before Gu Mingming turned hostile, "The female beauty pageant is coming soon. In the past years, Nina has always represented Saint Nazaire. If there is a sudden change this year, it will inevitably attract people's suspicions." Gu Mingming was stunned. "Why go for Nina? Can't Sandy go? Look at how beautiful she is after slimming down. She is much prettier than that ugly Nina, all right?" But Leah shook his head. At the end of winter, a female's figure represents the strength of a tribe. The plumper a female is, it means that the tribe has more food during winter. This is also one of the important factors for males to decide if they want to join the tribe. Moreover, Nina is a complete female after all. You will never know what a complete female means to a male. Gu Mingming slapped her thigh. "Damn it, I am also a complete female, at most I will go." But Leah shook his head again, and gently caressed the side of Gu Mingming's face. "Initially, I decided to take in Nina because I wanted to delay the time for you to expose yourself to the public. Since Sauter had received the news, it was believed that others would have heard about it too. But they are afraid of Elvis's power, and dare not offend him easily. So this beauty pageant will be the best test." Gu Mingming frowned, asking, "What do you mean? Speak human language." Leah smiled and waved his big tail. He circled Gu Mingming's waist and pulled her closer to his side. He continued, "Normally, the tribe that obtained the messenger of the beast deity would choose to publicize the existence of the messenger of the beast deity, to raise their own tribe's reputation, and attract powerful males to pledge allegiance to them. The beauty pageant is the most suitable time. Therefore, if the one participating in the beauty pageant this year is not Nina, but Sandy or Maya, everyone will guess why a tribe with a perfect female would send a half-orc to participate in the beauty pageant. Maybe Nina died during the winter? Didn't they say that people often die in winter?" Gu Mingming said in disdain. Leah smiled and nodded on Gu Mingming's little head, saying, "You still don't know the importance of a complete female to the tribe. Let me put it this way, if it wasn't for you, even if everyone in the tribe was sent to Nina's cave for her to eat, no one would frown. Which means, unless the entire Saint Nazaire tribe died, they would definitely not let a complete female starve to death." Aside from the topic, thank you to Lin Shi of the Xiaoxiang Academy for the flowers and monthly tickets. There are too many flowers, I can't even count them all. I feel so blissful, thank you. And thank you to 818 Quan GD. Umoshi, WS. Sakura World Protector of Sakura Sui Jin. Forget time for 99 reading points. Also Daily Protection Group, Readers Group, for 927-79273. Chapter 326. Gu Mingming really felt that it was not Nina who was twisted, but the worldview of the beast world was twisted. Wasn't she just lacking a pair of bare ears compared to Sandy? Was it worth it for the entire tribe to peel off their own skin and bones just to fill her stomach? Gu Mengmeng could not understand and could not be bothered to understand this twisted worldview, so she continued. Then what if Nina was unhappy in Saint Nazaire and left for another tribe? Leah smiled and shook his head. In the entire beast world, other than Saint Nazaire, no tribe would take in a female whose mating mark has been washed away. Even if she is a complete female, no tribe would dare to take her in. Aren't you afraid that she would use the same trick again, and harm the existing females in the tribe? Then, Gu Mengmeng was speechless. Since others know that you, the new messenger of the beast deity, are in Saint Nazaire, it is not difficult to know that you and Nina are not on good terms. So, if Nina does not appear in this year's beauty pageant, the most likely reason is that she is dead. And the only person who has the guts and authority to deal with a complete female is the messenger of the beast deity. Once this guess is established, regardless of whether the messenger of the beast deity is really in Saint Nazaire, this place will become the target of public criticism. After Leah finished speaking, he paused for a moment, as if he had thought of something funny. He sneered and continued. Of course, if you directly appear in the beauty pageant, it would be a smart move. After announcing your identity, any conflict on the surface would be seen as a provocation to the messenger of the beast deity. That would cause a conflict in the entire beast world, and every tribe would attack and kill the instigator to show their loyalty to you. But to destroy a tribe and snatch the messenger of the beast deity, why would they only attack forcefully? By then, I'm afraid that all sorts of monsters and deities would infiltrate Saint Nazaire, and it would be hard to distinguish who is a human and who is a ghost. Gu Mengmeng gritted her teeth and said, So we must keep this Nina? We have to provide for her every year, so that she can participate in the beauty pageant? Leah shook his head and narrowed his eyes. The existence of the messenger of the beast deity is not something that can be hidden easily. After this year's beauty pageant, Nina would be useless. Gu Mengmeng sighed and said, So Elvis stopped me today because I still need Nina to participate in that beauty pageant, right? Leah shook his head again. How is that possible? If he could mistreat you for the sake of the bigger picture, he would have secretly summoned the leaders of the other tribes before winter, and chosen a suitable person from their families to mate with you so as to form an alliance and rapidly expand the territory of Saint Nazaire. If that's the case, I'm afraid Saint Nazaire would already be the famous messenger's tribe in the beast world. F***ck. Gu Mengmeng suddenly felt a little scared. She almost became a prostitute in the beast world, and was forced to receive customers? She patted her little chest. Luckily, Elvis was a wolf with a conscience. Then why did he stop me? Gu Mengmeng was still confused as she tilted her head and asked. Leah smiled as he leaned forward and pressed the tip of his nose against Gu Mengmeng's. He smiled ambiguously and asked, You really don't remember anything we told you in the past? Gu Mengmeng retreated backwards awkwardly, but unfortunately, her body was circled by Li's big tail, and the space she could move was limited. She cleared her throat and pushed Li's chest away, saying, You can talk if you want, don't stick close to me. Leah retreated back resentfully and sat properly. He looked at Gu Mengmeng sadly and said, He stopped you because he knows you are soft-hearted and afraid of blood. He doesn't want any dirty memories to remain in your memory. Aside from the topic, thank you Xiaoxiang for reading Zishua's evaluation votes. Thank you everyone for helping me to give 5 good evaluations. Chapter 327. Gu Mengmeng placed her hands on her hips and asked, Who told you that I'm afraid of blood? I, lil miss, am very daring. Killing chickens and slaughtering geese is as easy as lifting a hand. I won't even blink. But Leah smiled. It was a rare bright smile. Looking at Gu Mengmeng, he tapped on her little nose and said, Elvis and I still remember clearly how badly you cried on the day of your coming-of-age ceremony. Gu Mengmeng's aura instantly became like a little flame that was just lit up and had a bucket of ice water poured over it. After a sizzling sound, there was only a wisp of green smoke left. Mengmeng. Leah suddenly looked at Gu Mengmeng affectionately with a faint smile. His expression was serious, which was rare for him. After looking at Gu Mingming for a while, he continued. Can't you try to rely on us occasionally? Elvis and I were waiting for your orders just now. If you want Nina to die, you only need to say the word. No matter if you called Elvis or me, we can do it for you. But why? Why don't you give us a chance? Gu Mingming sighed and said, It's not appropriate to drag a man into a fight between women, right? Moreover, she's obviously not my opponent. Leah did not buy it. He tugged at the corner of Gu Mingming's shirt lightly and stared at his and Gu Mingming's overlapping shadows. He said in a low voice, I'm envious of Barit. Ah. Gu Mingming did not quite understand. Why did Barit get involved when talking about Nina? Li's tone was low and slow. That faint smile of his made one feel a little sad. Barit at least went up the platform of the deity's punishment for you, while I did not even have a chance to express my loyalty to you. Leah suddenly raised his head and looked straight into Gu Mingming's eyes. His long and narrow eyes were filled with deep hesitation. He asked softly, Is it because I'm a beast pet that you don't give me a chance? Gu Mingming slapped Li's head and said, Did you graduate from a drama queen academy? Why are you so dramatic? Why are you pretending to be a peaceful green tea bitch? I won't be angry if you don't mention the beast pet. But you announced that you're my beast pet in front of everyone. Did you ask for my opinion? How am I going to explain this to Elvis? I just got married, and my 4 children haven't even reached 100 days old. And now I'm keeping a vixen at home? Are you kidding? Li's mood disappeared after Gu Mingming's slap, so he regained his usual smile, flirtatious and flirtatious. He used his large tail to sweep Gu Mingming's body and softened his body in an alluring manner. He leaned into Gu Mingming's arms and looked up at her, saying, Didn't you also not explain to Elvis when you were rearing rabbits in his cave? Why do you need an explanation for raising a fox now? Damn it, rabbits are not intelligent. Gu Mingming roared and pushed Leah. Leah took the opportunity to turn around and stand behind Gu Mingming, hugging her from behind. He rested his chin on Gu Mingming's shoulder and bit her earlobe softly. Then why didn't you just expose me just now? Gu Mingming looked at Leah. You are the witch doctor of the tribe after all. If I humiliate you in front of everyone, how can you live in the tribe in the future? Your heart aches for me. Leah smiled. Cut the crap. Hurry up and help me think of a way to settle this pet beast issue. I'm not acting in investiture of the gods. There's no use for a vixen. You came to the wrong recording studio. Aside from the topic, thank you to Xiaoxiang's baby Cukebase 5A865F62 for tipping 100 points. Chapter 328. Leah shrugged his shoulders and smiled. That's easy to solve. As long as you mate with me, I won't be a beast pet anymore. Gu Mingming glared at Leah with a darkened face. She repeated with her most serious expression. I grew up accepting monogamy. I will only have one husband in this lifetime. You better give up on this idea and consider others. Leah pouted his lips and said seductively, The second method, when do you want to try snow fox meat? Scram. Gu Mingming interrupted Li's words. She could not accept such a joke. Especially when she found out that this kind of thing was really happening around her, she couldn't accept it. Leah had a sense of propriety. He could tell when Gu Mingming was pretending to be angry, and when she was really angry. Now that she was angry, he did not continue speaking. He just rubbed Gu Mingming's little head and coaxed her. All right, since the news of me being your beast pet has already been spread out, just treat it as me wanting to flaunt my prowess by relying on you, the messenger of the beast deity. Even if you can't give me your love, you can at least lend me your name to show off, right? Gu Mingming rolled her eyes. Did Leah need to borrow her name to show off? She did not forget how this fellow tore off one of Quentin's arms. She also did not forget how he left the same scar on Sandy's partner on so many of Nina's partners within 3 seconds. With his abilities, he would definitely be a big boss no matter where he went, alright? Gu Mingming did not reply to Leah. Sometimes she was also very conflicted. Leah was the one who let go first, but she always lacked confidence in front of him. It was as if she was the heartless person who went back on his word and abandoned the old for the new. Sighing, Gu Mingming asked, Elvis brought the males in the tribe out to hunt. Is it all right if you don't go? Leah lifted his chin proudly and said, Can't you tell? In the entire tribe, other than Elvis, I am the only one who can maintain my human form. This is the difference in our abilities, so you better consider taking me in. You won't be at a disadvantage. Gu Mingming's forehead twitched twice. She turned her head and said, Scram. Gu Mingming ignored Leah and just pulled Sandy to the side. Leah did not follow them, and only called the 4 little ones to play at the side. You really don't intend to accept Leah? I felt that Leah wasn't bad. Although he had a messy past with Nina, he probably had his own difficulties. I'm not as smart as you, but I can tell that Leah is sincere towards you. You can't possibly not feel anything, right? Moreover, Leah has already announced to the world that he is your beast pet. If you still refuse to accept him, he will be laughed at by others. Gu Mingming tilted her head and looked at Sandy helplessly. Why are you also trying to persuade me to accept Leah? I have already mated with Elvis. I have a husband, a married woman, do you understand? You're still fooling around outside. You're going to be drowned in a pig cage, okay? Sandy pouted her lips and lowered her head in disappointment and sadness. She fiddled with her fingers and muttered softly, If Leah can only be a beast pet, then he have even less chance. Gu Mingming hooked Sandy's chin lightly with her hand and lifted her little face up. She squinted her eyes at Sandy and asked, He? Who is the person you're thinking of in your heart? Aside from the topic, thank you Xiaoxiang's baby Lifeng 7428. 18 monthly tickets. True love indeed. Thank you baby. Chapter 329. Sandy was a little embarrassed. She looked at Gu Mingming's side profile against the light. She did not know if it was because of her guilty conscience, but she just felt her heart beating wildly. Blushing, Sandy avoided Gu Mingming's eyes and mumbled, No one. Gu Mingming slowly inched closer to Sandy until the tip of her nose was almost touching Sandy's. Taking a deep breath, Gu Mingming raised her brows and said, No one? That's not right. I can clearly smell an adulterous affair. Sandy hurriedly shook her head and said, No, nothing happened between me and Colin. Gu Mingming smiled devilishly and released Sandy's chin. She said in a seemingly casual manner, Ah, Colin. Sandy realized that she had let it slip. She hurriedly covered her mouth with her 2 hands and looked at Gu Mingming with her big innocent eyes. The word guilty was clearly written all over her face. Gu Mingming turned around and laid on Sandy's lap like how Leah usually did. She used her hand to gently pat Sandy's hand away from her mouth and asked with a smile, Why? Do you like Colin? Sandy instinctively nodded her head before suddenly regaining her senses and shaking her head violently. Gu Mingming crossed her arms in front of her chest and closed her eyes. She just laid on Sandy's lap quietly as if she had fallen asleep. After a long while, she slowly opened her mouth and said, This is not the first time I have heard you mention Colin in front of me. Your feelings towards him are very obvious. Sandy's face turned red. Even though she knew that Gu Mingming had closed her eyes and was not looking at her, she still lowered her head guiltily. How is it? Do you need me to help you? Gu Mingming slowly opened her eyes. Sunlight was reflected in her pupils, and it was so dazzling. Help me. Sandy was dazzled by Gu Mingming's gaze. She could not help but repeat the last 2 words after Gu Mingming. That unconcealable yearning and anticipation made her look like a little girl who just had her first awakening of love. Gu Mingming smiled and sat up. She pinched Sandy's little face and said, Your feelings are all written on your face. Sandy blushed and hurriedly covered her face with both hands. She looked at Gu Mingming with her big innocent eyes and pursed her lips, unable to say a word for a long time. Colin is an honest man. If you like him, you have to act fast, Gu Mingming said. Sandy bit her lip and asked, Do you like Colin too? The person he likes is you. If you are willing to accept him, I can give up. Gu Mingming smiled in a carefree manner and looked towards the beast horde that was charging towards them from afar. The eyes of the black wolf that was leading the pack were as bright as the stars in the night sky, its focused gaze meeting with Gu Mingming's. Gu Mingming waved her hands, then turned to look at Sandy. "That is my man." Sandy nodded stiffly and didn't say anything. A small seed sprouted in his heart. Maybe, in just a few breaths, Elvis had already reached Gu Mengmeng. At the same time that he transformed into a human, he fastened his animal skin skirt. He remembered that his Xiao Meng did not like others to see his body, especially some exclusive parts. Gu Mengmeng went up to him. Standing on the platform of the deity's punishment, she was slightly taller than Elvis. She opened her arms wide and looked like she was asking for a hug. Elvis smiled and opened his arms wide. Gu Mengmeng leaned forward without hesitation and fell straight into Elvis's chest. She wrapped her arms around his neck and planted a kiss on the side of his face. "My dear, welcome home." Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling from Xiaoxiang Academy, 138 by 0577, for the Fresh Flower monthly evaluation ticket. You really took care of me from all angles, haha. And thank you to the little darling from QQ Reading, BG, for the 698 points rewarded. Chapter 330. Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's little head before carrying her on his shoulders. He leaped onto the platform of the deity's punishment and turned around to face his tribesmen. Leah had unknowingly appeared beside Elvis and stood one step behind him. He kept his joking expression and was focused and serious. Gu Mengmeng did not know what had happened and was about to ask when she saw Leah suddenly kneeling on one knee and placing his right hand on his left chest. He lowered his head in a submissive posture and said, "Saint Nazir Witch Doctor Leah, leading the tribesmen to provide for the arrival of the messenger of the beast deity. We are willing to be commanded by the mighty messenger to fight for you even if our bones are crushed. We are willing to die 1,000 times for you. We are willing to fight for you even if our bones are crushed. We are willing to die 1,000 times for you. We are willing to fight for you even if our bones are crushed. We are willing to die 1,000 times for you." Gu Mengmeng looked at the situation in front of her with a dumbfounded expression. She thought to herself, could it be that I should say, "Everyone please rise"? Or should I say, "My beloved concubine please rise"? Elvis raised his hand, and the crowd immediately quietened down. Gu Mengmeng lowered her head and looked at Elvis with a face full of question marks. Elvis looked up and met Gu Mengmeng's gaze. He said, "Before winter, Leah had already announced your identity to the tribe. So the first thing after the first hunt in spring is to swear loyalty to you." Gu Mengmeng smiled awkwardly and asked in a small voice, "Then what should I say?" Elvis held onto Gu Mengmeng's little hand and kissed it. He said, "Allow us to swear loyalty to you and protect your honor as the messenger of the beast deity." Gu Mengmeng's lips twitched. Her smile was uglier than crying. Was she going to be a despot now? Could she reject him? Everyone was so familiar with each other, and it felt weird to be worshipped like this. Leah looked at Gu Mengmeng and could not help but smile. Gu Mengmeng glared at Leah and thought to herself, "Why didn't you remind me just now if you knew this would happen?" But she could not flare up in front of everyone. She could only grit her teeth and said, "Although I am the messenger of the beast deity, I am also the Gu Mengmeng that everyone is familiar with. Thank you for not abandoning me and receiving everyone's support. I will do my best to lead everyone to a better life." Gu Mengmeng broke out in cold sweat for herself. Luckily, she had been elected as a class monitor in high school, so she could change a few sentences from her script and use it here. "Thank you, messenger, for your kindness." Leah took the lead again. After 3 chants, everyone slowly stood up. Gu Mengmeng heaved a sigh of relief and patted Elvis's arm, signaling him to put her down. Elvis changed his position and hugged her in his arms. He whispered into her ear, "Don't get down, it's cold." Gu Mengmeng smiled and nodded. The eyes of the entire tribe were focused on her. Such a small action was so intimate and sweet that she could not help but feel shy. Leah took a step forward and said, "Great messenger, regarding the selection of the guardian." Gu Mengmeng was stunned and asked, "What guard?" "The messenger of the beast deity should have 2 guardians on the left and right. They are in charge of conveying the messenger's orders and executing some special arrangements. The great messenger knows all the warriors in the tribe. Is there anyone you like? Leah was still smiling warmly, but Gu Mengmeng could clearly see a trace of slyness in his eyes. F*******. He did it on purpose. Gu Mengmeng recalled the situation when Leah made her lie on the side of the plate to teach her son how to drink the bone soup. Aside from the topic. Thank you, little darling from Xiaoxiang Academy. WXIN 16CF 33A021. For voting 4 monthly votes. I love you. Chapter 331. Gu Mengmeng said helplessly. Just you and Elvis. Left guard, right guard, that's pretty good. But Leah shook his head and said with a face full of regret. Although I really want to have more opportunities and more reasons to stay by your side, but the witch doctor and tribe leader cannot be the left and right guards. This is to prevent someone from having too much power and being biased when executing the mighty messenger's orders. Gu Mengmeng's head hurt a little. Although she knew almost everyone in the tribe, she could not name many of them. Rubbing her eyebrows, Gu Mengmeng turned to look at Elvis and said, Hubby, you make the arrangements, all right? Elvis's heart ached a little. He did not want Gu Mengmeng to be involved in these troublesome matters, but her identity meant that these troubles were just the beginning, and Heath could not stop it. Kissing Gu Mengmeng's forehead, he said helplessly, I can't interfere with matters within the scope of the divine authority. What do you mean? Gu Mengmeng said with a bitter face, Speak human language. Elvis was amused by Gu Mengmeng's sullen look. Others all dreamed of becoming the messenger of the beast deity. He had seen quite a few who swindled others, but none of them could put on airs better than Gu Mengmeng, as if they could get whatever they wanted and look down on everyone else. But Gu Mengmeng, the genuine messenger of the beast deity, had no feelings towards the divine authority. It was as if the authority of the messenger of the beast deity was not as satisfying as a roasted sweet potato in the cave. The messenger of the beast deity has the right to dictate. Strictly speaking, Leah and I are your subordinates first, then your partners and beast pet. Gu Mengmeng slapped Elvis's chest and said fiercely, Why are you talking about beast pet too? Can you not mention this anymore? Elvis nodded and said, Yes, my mighty messenger. Gu Mengmeng was a little impatient with this bureaucratic idea, so she pointed at Sandy and said, Then Sandy and Maya, let them be my guards. They can help me coax my sons when they are free. That's pretty good. Leah whispered into Gu Mengmeng's ear, The guards must be males, because they have to become the messenger's claws and fangs, as well as her shield and armor. Sandy and Maya are too weak. They'll be killed. Gu Mengmeng swung her arms in annoyance and looked at Leah. I can't do this and I can't do that. Why don't you give me a few candidates? But Leah took another step back and looked at Gu Mengmeng innocently, saying, Even the first partner can't interfere with the religious authority. I'm just a beast pet, and an unloved beast pet at that. What right do I have to make irresponsible remarks? If you continue spouting nonsense, I will pull out your tongue. Gu Mengmeng clenched her teeth and squeezed out this sentence. But Leah just blinked his eyes pitifully. Then he's sticking his tongue out right now. Gu Mengmeng patted his chin, and Leah bit his own tongue without any warning. His mouth was filled with blood, but he was not hurt at all. In the end, Gu Mengmeng did not use all her strength. She was teasing and punishing him. Leah looked at Gu Mengmeng and blinked his long and affectionate eyes. He leaned his shoulder against Gu Mengmeng's feet suggestively and asked, Is this punishment enough? Actually, we can punish him even more. Scram. Gu Mengmeng finally could not take it anymore and roared. Mighty messenger, please calm down. Mighty messenger, please calm down. Gu Mengmeng's roar made the tribesmen who had just stood up kneel on the ground again. Aside from the topic, thank you to Xiaoxiang's baby beautiful loving butler for the 5 monthly tickets. Chapter 332. Gu Mengmeng finally decided on Barit and Colin as the guardians of the messenger. In the tribe other than Elvis, Leah and Sandy, Gu Mengmeng was most familiar with these two people. There was no need to mention Barit. He was the one who risked his life for her. As for Colin, Gu Mengmeng had her own considerations. After Barit and Colin received their positions, They stood out from the beast horde and jumped onto the platform of the deity's punishment to stand behind Gu Mingming. Just like that, the newest core leader of Saint Nazir stood on the platform of the deity's punishment. The noon sun was bright, and the snow that had yet to melt reflected the light. The crystal-clear snow water that had already melted flowed along the ditches in the snow, becoming the most sacred song of that year. Gu Mingming wore a red firefox fur coat and was carried in Elvis's arms. Leah, dressed in a witch doctor's attire, stood on Gu Mingming's left side. The burly and dignified Barit and Colin stood on the outside of Elvis and Leah without a smile. The five of them stood at the highest position in Saint Nazir, the sun behind them giving them a dazzling halo. The four cubs did not know what was happening at the moment and chased and giggled beside their parents' feet without a care in the world, adding a lot of vitality to this solemn scene. That day, everyone in Saint Nazir said that they witnessed hope with their own eyes. After coming down from the platform of the deity's punishment, Gu Mingming asked Leah, didn't you say you wanted to introduce Ian to the tribesmen? Why didn't you mention this just now? Leah made a shush gesture and said, let's talk about it at my place. Gu Mingming understood that Leah meant that he had other plans and she could not expose him. So she turned to look at Elvis and changed the topic. How were the results of your first hunt? Elvis held Gu Mingming's little hand and said, with the protection of the messenger of the beast deity, I naturally gained a lot. Gu Mingming smiled and cupped Elvis's face asking, then are you full? Elvis was stunned, so Xiaoming knew that he did not have enough to eat during winter? That was why she cooked more and more with each meal. Then willfully said that she did not want to eat any more, and let him finish the excess food. Elvis's heart warmed, and he nodded with a smile. I'm very full. Gu Mingming smiled in satisfaction, then asked again, then what should we do next? Elvis looked at Leah and Leah replied, the tribe leader has brought back the first prey of the year. Normally, it should be offered as a sacrifice to the beast deity. But since the great emissary is here, I shall offer it to the great emissary. Gu Mingming rolled her eyes at Leah and said, can't you speak properly? Lord Emissary, is it fun? Great messenger, it was quite fun. Leah grinned and replied. Gu Mingming gritted her teeth and said, the great messenger now orders all of you not to call me the great messenger. Just call me Gu Mingming like before. With that, Gu Mingming turned around, cupped Elvis's face and smiled. Call me your wife. Elvis's gaze was as blue as the heavens, filled with endless deep emotions. His voice was as low and charming as a cello as he replied, yes, my queen. Gu Mingming was still a little embarrassed to say the honeyed words in front of everyone. She wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and buried her face in the crook of his neck. Using an angle that others could not see, she bit Elvis's neck lightly, then giggled in delight. Aside from the topic, thank you to Shaoxiang Academy for the C evaluation vote. Chapter 333. Gu Mingming and the rest returned to Elvis's cave directly. Previously, discussions were done in the witch doctor's cave, but now that the Eagle Owl tribe was staying in Li's cave, it was not convenient to go over. Moreover, with the messenger of the beast deity, the witch doctor was no longer the closest to the beast deity in the tribe, so naturally, the messenger's residence was the best place to discuss. Barit and Colin stood outside the cave, looking as solemn as door deities. Even if Gu Mingming could not feel it, she knew that they were releasing their beast pressure. The beast pressure of 2 orcs was not low, but it was not high either. The deterrent effect of their beast pressure was actually limited, but everyone's beast pressure was different. Both of them were now the emissary's guardians, so the purpose of their beast pressure was to tell the people who approached, the emissary is discussing something, and no one is allowed to approach. Gu Mingming smiled helplessly, patting their shoulders. Relax, don't be so nervous. This is Elvis's territory. Even if you don't stand there so dutifully, no one would dare to come here to eavesdrop. Barit and Colin looked at each other, then at Elvis. Elvis nodded, indicating that they should go and take care of Gu Mingming. No one would dare to go near the residence of a 4th-level orc. Even if they did, they would not be able to hide from his senses. Yes, mighty messenger. Barit and Colin replied in unison. Gu Mingming's lips twitched, asking, "Are you two going to treat me like this too?" "Yes, I became the messenger of the beast deity, but I did not do anything to let you two down, right? Are you going to distance yourself from me like this?" Barit did not say a word, but Colin scratched his head innocently, saying, "Yeah, actually it's not distance. It's just that we don't know how to interact with you at the moment. After all, it's our first time being a guard. We don't know what to do." Gu Mingming burst out laughing, pointing at her own nose, saying, "It's also my first time being the messenger of the beast deity. We don't have much experience, so let's not laugh at each other. The main reason why I chose you two to be my guards is because you two are my friends, so I can trust my back to you too. But if you two handle this impartially and draw a clear line between us, I will be very sad. I don't want to lose my friends just because I became the messenger of the beast deity." He recalled that night when everyone was eating the delicacies cooked by Gu Mingming. That day, Oakley asked Gu Mingming why she didn't use the method of storing food to unify the beast world. Gu Mingming said that standing at the peak would make one a loner, without any kin or friends. Colin frowned and asked in all seriousness, "Then if I still call you Gu Mingming, will others think that your guards don't respect you, so they will also look down on you and act as they please?" Gu Mingming's expression turned serious. But Gu Mingming laughed and asked back, "If the other party respects the title of messenger of the beast deity, then I don't need this kind of respect. If they respect me, Gu Mingming, then even if I call them Zhang San, Li Si, Wang Er Matzi, they will still respect me. Besides," as Gu Mingming said, she leaned into Elvis's arms and said, "If you dare to be so presumptuous in front of me, you have to ask my husband for permission first." Elvis smiled faintly. He liked it when she used her power to bully others, especially when she used his power. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling from Xiaoxiang Academy, little girl who loves reading novels, for the flowers and tickets, and thank you to the little darling from QQ Reading, Red Sandalwood Fragrance, for the 399 reading points. Chapter 334. Gu Mingming used the ready-made ingredients at home to cook a huge hot pot. After Leah fed the bone soup to the 4 little ones, they fell asleep like little pigs after an entire morning of wild activities. The 5 adults surrounded the hot pot and chatted while eating. The atmosphere became much more relaxed. "Now that there's no one else, tell me, how do you plan to deal with Ian and the rest?" Gu Mingming asked Leah as she scooped meat into Elvis's bowl. Leah handed his bowl over as well. He had a proud look on his face, as if he would not tell her if she did not let him eat the meat. Gu Mingming could not be bothered to argue with him, so she scooped a big bowl of meat for him. Leah ate 2 mouthfuls in satisfaction before continuing, "I have a premonition that even if we send Nina to participate in this year's beauty pageant as usual, Sauter will not just leave us alone. They would definitely send more people to investigate the situation. So I plan to hide Ian and the rest first, and use them as a secret force for the messenger of the beast deity." Gu Mingming tilted her head and said, "I would have forgotten if you didn't mention it. Didn't Dumbo already verify my identity previously? The people in Sauter should have already known by now, right?" Leah smiled faintly and said, "Dumbo's life is not good. He fell into winter before even descending the mountains. I'm afraid he did not make it back alive to deliver the message. Otherwise, the people in Sauter would have rushed here long ago." Gu Mingming thought about it and agreed. Sauter was a snow fox tribe and Leah could walk in the snow. If Dumbo's message had really been sent out, he should have arrived long ago. Gu Mingming nodded and said, "Do you think they will send another messenger over?" Leah shook his head and said, "No." Gu Mingming looked at Leah in confusion. Leah continued, "If the first messenger did not return, Sauter will be on guard. This time, they will definitely not come with great fanfare to ask for the people. Instead, they will use some underhanded methods." The people from the Snow Fox tribe are used to using such underhanded methods. Gu Mingming patted Li's shoulder and said in a serious tone, "Big brother, don't forget that you are also from the Snow Fox tribe." But Li's smile dimmed for a moment. Then he regained his amorous smile. "No, I am no longer a member of the Snow Fox clan. I am yours." Gu Mingming believed that she did not see wrongly. Thinking back to what Dumbo had said previously, her heart skipped a beat. She felt a little embarrassed and did not expose him. Instead, she changed the topic. Then how do you plan to deal with it? Leah chuckled and hooked Gu Mingming's chin with his hand, saying, as long as my mighty messenger promises me not to leave the tribe under any circumstances and must bring Elvis and me along when she leaves, then all of Sauter's little tricks will become useless. Why do I need to deal with them? Gu Mingming slapped Li's hand away and said, just say what you want to say, don't keep touching me. Leah sighed. He hugged his large tail and touched it. He muttered to himself, sigh, back then when you touched my body all over, I let you do as you please. Now you don't even allow me to touch your chin. Sigh, humans are so fickle. Gu Mingming really had the urge to bite Leah to death. Damn, couldn't people who had already broken up have some integrity? Was there any meaning in bringing up what happened in the past? Gu Mingming glared at Leah and ignored him. She turned around and went deeper into the cave to get some meat. After Gu Mingming left, Elvis looked at Leah and said faintly, why do you have to pretend to be indifferent? You must be very anxious about facing Sauter, right? If you are willing to say it, Xiaomeng. Leah kept his joking face and heaved a long sigh of relief. He forced a smile and said, I want to be her pillar of support and not her burden. Elvis, at least you should understand me. Aside from the topic, thank you to Xiaoxiang Academy's baby, Wex 1018 for your vote. Chapter 335. When the four little fellows woke up, it was already evening. The five-person meeting had already ended and Gu Mingming was sitting beside Elvis, looking at Colin with a sneaky smile. Colin had goosebumps from her smile. He scratched the back of his head and asked, Gu Mingming, what's wrong? Why do you keep smiling at me? Gu Mingming rubbed her chin and asked, Colin, what do you think of my Sandy? Colin was taken aback by Gu Mingming's random question. He thought for a while and said, why is Sandy yours? Isn't she from the Bode family? Gu Mingming slapped her thigh and said, she's mine. Oh. Colin was shocked by Gu Mingming. He shrunk his neck and did not dare to ask further. He just turned to look at Barit helplessly. Barit, however, turned his head and pretended not to see anything. He had no intention of helping him at all. Gu Mingming patted Colin and said, I'm asking you a question. What are you looking around for? Answer me. What do you think of my Sandy? Colin thought about it seriously and answered, gluttonous, sleepy and soft-tempered. Gu Mingming hissed and said unhappily, do you mean that my Sandy doesn't have any good points? Colin felt a strong sense of danger. He blinked his eyes and did not dare to say anything. Gu Mingming continued, being able to eat is a blessing. Do you understand? Yes, yes, yes. Colin nodded his head in a naive manner. Gu Mingming continued, sleeping more will make your skin better. This is called self-care and self-regulation by a girl. As a female, she has the responsibility to take care of her appearance to beautify the world. Think about it. When a male goes out to hunt and returns home to see his beautiful wife, isn't that a joyous thing? Would you rather see a beautiful Sandy or a necklace Nina when you return home? Colin fell into Gu Mingming's trap. It was a choice of A or B and his choice was not C or give up. If it was Leah or Oakley, they would definitely ask, why do I have to see both of them when I return home and not Maya or you? But Colin's brain, of course Sandy is better. Right. Gu Mingming had a look of approval on her face. She stretched out her arm and placed it on Colin's shoulder, as if they were good brothers. She continued, think about it again, Sandy's character is a little soft, but don't you think that having a soft body is an advantage? Could it be that you have the tendency to fight and you like Nina's temperament of flipping out at any time and eating people at the slightest disagreement? Colin shook his head. His movement was so big that wind entered his mouth. Gu Mingming patted Colin's shoulder and said, that's right, then tell me, is my Sandy a good female? Colin nodded in agreement. Gu Mingming asked again, then why didn't you pursue such a good female? Don't you think you are stupid? Colin nodded subconsciously. After nodding for a long time, He suddenly realized something and began to shake his head. Sandy is my sister. You can't pursue her. Gu Mengmeng was stunned. What the heck? Forbidden love? You two are from the same mother? Gu Mengmeng asked carefully. Colin shook his head and said, No, but we grew up together. She has always called me brother. Gu Mengmeng punched Colin's shoulder and said with a face full of sorrow and anger, You are really damn stupid. Colin was at a loss. He completely did not know what was going on. He could only blink his eyes and look at Gu Mengmeng blankly. What's wrong? Aside from the topic. Thank you babies for your love. Thank you for your votes and 5-star reviews. Chapter 336. Colin, I always knew you were honest, but I didn't expect you to be so honest. Gu Mengmeng said with a pitiful face. Do you know that there's a phrase called childhood sweetheart in this world? Colin thought for a while, then shook his head, indicating that he did not know. Riding a bamboo horse, circling the bed to play with plums. Living together for 1,000 miles, no grudges between the two of you. Gu Mengmeng shook her head and recited, then looked at Colin ambiguously. Colin looked back at her in a daze. The 3 words I don't understand were clearly written all over his face. Gu Mengmeng sighed and said, Have you ever thought about why Sandy treats you so well? Colin looked at Gu Mengmeng and asked sincerely, Why? Because she likes you. This answer almost slipped out, but Gu Mengmeng held it in. Because even if she wanted to say this, it should not come from her mouth. Moreover, as a good bestie, she had the responsibility to maintain her bad friend's advantage and status in the relationship. What the hell was with throwing herself at him? Even if Sandy liked Colin first, she must not let this fellow know. So Gu Mengmeng turned around and sat back in Elvis's arms, smiling maliciously. Colin, I heard that Nina is going to find trouble with Sandy. Why? Colin frowned and asked. Gu Mengmeng sighed helplessly and said, Didn't I beat her up again today? She doesn't dare to find trouble with me, so she went to bully Sandy. In the end, it's because Sandy doesn't have a worthy partner in her family. How can Bode and the rest defeat the 20 over partners in Nina's family? Sigh, if Sandy has a strong male in her family, she won't always be bullied by Nina. Don't you think so? Colin thought for a while, then turned to look at Leah and asked carefully, Leah, how about you consider Sandy? The great messenger said that Sandy is very good. Lee's smile did not diminish, no emotions could be seen in his curved eyes. He placed his elbow on Colin's shoulder lightly and asked gently, Are you looking down on me because I'm a beast pet? No. Colin was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. He himself could not explain why. Leah clearly looked like he was smiling happily, but why did he feel a chill down his spine? Leah turned around and pounced towards Gu Mengmeng. Sobs Mengmeng. You have to seek justice for me. Gu Mengmeng kicked Leah away and squinted at Colin. Colin did not notice Gu Mengmeng's expression at all. He shifted closer to Barit and hugged him in his arms, asking, Barit, what do you think of Gu Mengmeng's Sandy? Barit sneered. Colin's brain had learned to apply what he had learned on the spot, trying to use the same trick that Gu Mengmeng had used on him just now to trick him. Did he think he was in the same situation as him? Hey, what does that mean? Look, Gu Mengmeng said Sandy has a soft body and is easy to push down. She is a good female. Barit turned around, looked at Colin and asked, Since she's a good female, why don't you want her? Me? Colin pointed at his own nose in a daze, then laughed out loud and slapped Barit's shoulder. Stop fooling around, I'm her brother. Barit sighed and looked at Gu Mengmeng, then at Colin who was still smiling foolishly. He thought to himself, Brother, good luck to you. Chapter 337. Colin was silent, because even though Nina bullied Sandy in the past, it was always Bode and the rest who suffered and never hurt Sandy. But now, Elvis whispered into Gu Mengmeng's ear. I remember that Nina only left a bite mark on Sandy's finger. It didn't even break the skin, right? And it seemed like Sandy beat Nina up more miserably. Gu Mengmeng poked Elvis harshly with her elbow and rolled her eyes at him. Then she squeezed her eyes and pretended to be sorrowful. Sigh, if only I was a male. Then I would chase after Sandy and protect her with all my might. Whoever dares to bully her, I would pinch him to death. Unfortunately, I am a female. Sigh, why am I not a second-level male orc? Why is this so? Elvis looked at Gu Mingming in confusion, totally not understanding what was going on. He just felt that Gu Mingming was acting unusually today, especially her tone. It was extremely weird. Oh, if Elvis was a modern person, he would know that Gu Mingming was acting like a drama queen. Colin looked up abruptly and slapped his thigh. I'm going. Gu Mingming was overjoyed, but she still pretended to be confused and asked, You? Where are you going? Colin said, I'm going to mate with Sandy. I will protect Sandy in the future. I will pinch anyone who dares to bully her to death. I am a second-level orc, and a male. Gu Mingming clasped her hands in front of her chest. Her expression was pretentious as if she was acting in a stage play. Her emphasis was also weird, like the Chinese dubbing in old European and American movies. But you are her brother, Colin made a sound then said, Because I am her brother, I cannot watch her get bullied by others. Gu Mingming's face twitched. What the heck? He still treated her as his own brother? Gu Mingming had to go all the way. She brought out the acting skills she used to act in children's dramas at the amusement park, exaggeratedly saying, No, this can't be. Colin tilted his head asking, Why? Gu Mingming said, Because only males who love her wholeheartedly have the right to protect her. Colin remained silent for a moment, then looked up and asked Gu Mingming, What is love? I don't understand. Gu Mingming could not continue her act and heaved a sigh of relief. She transformed into a normal person and leaned into Elvis's arms asking, If you only have one sweet potato and both you and Sandy are hungry, who is going to eat it? Give it to Sandy, Colin said without hesitation. Although Sandy is a half-orc, she is also a precious female. Not to mention that there is still a sweet potato. Even if there is no sweet potato, I will eat Sandy to keep her alive. Another freaking gender difference. Gu Mingming asked again. If someone made Sandy cry, what would you do? That depends on who it is. Colin said. If it's a male, then strangle him. But if it's a female, Gu Mingming pointed at her own nose and asked, What if it's me? Colin was silent for a long time and fell into a dilemma. Then he looked up and said, Then why did you bully Sandy? Gu Mingming smiled. Because I snatched something she liked. Colin asked again, What is that? I will find you a new one. Can't you return the old one to Sandy? Gu Mingming stood up from Elvis's arms and walked to Colin. She used her finger to point at Colin's nose and asked, But what if it's a human? Colin was stunned for a moment. Then he drew in a cold breath and said, What? Sandy likes Elvis. Gu Mingming really wanted to spit a mouthful of blood on Colin's face and drown him. Aside from the topic, Gu Mingming, Big brother, you must have grown some snacks, Colin. I've grown some, I'm here. Look, I can even jump. It's so warm. Chapter 338. Looking at Gu Mingming's expression, Colin knew that he had guessed wrongly. He scratched the back of his head in embarrassment and smiled. Aya Gu Mingming, what are you trying to say? Can't you just say it? I'm not as smart as Leah, I can't guess it. Gu Mingming smiled and said, Knowing that you're not smart means that you're not hopelessly stupid. Colin tilted his head and looked at Barit, asking in a small voice, Gu Mingming is praising me, right? Barit sighed and nodded, replying, Yes, praising you. I'm so jealous. Colin grinned and chuckled. Then there's no use in being jealous. I'm smarter than you. Yeah, you're so smart. Barit turned his head and sighed. While they were fooling around, Elvis suddenly scooped Gu Mingming back into his arms and stood up to walk out. No one asked why, but just maintained their formation and followed him out together. Gu Mingming was dumbfounded, hugging Elvis's neck and asked, What's wrong? What are you going to do? Our sons are still sleeping in the cave. Are you just going to leave them here? Elvis turned his head to look at the cave entrance and said, If we can't even protect ourselves, it's better to die cleanly than to live. Huh. You. Gu Mingming rolled up her sleeves and placed her hands on her hips. Can you protect yourself when you're not even 3 months old? Yeah. Elvis nodded. Gu Mingming wanted to retort, but her words were stuck in her throat. She was actually speechless. After holding it in for a long time, she could not come up with a retort and could only look at Leah gloomily, asking, Leah, why don't you go back and help me look after my children for a while? Leah wagged his big tail and said, Don't worry, the surroundings are filled with Elvis's scent. Normal beasts would not dare to come close. As for the orcs, who would dare to steal the children of the messenger of the beast deity from the tribe leader's house? But Gu Mingming wanted to say something more, but she heard someone calling her name from afar. Turning back, she saw an anxious Bode. What happened? Did something happen to Sandy? Gu Mingming frowned. Other than Sandy, no one else could make Bode so flustered. Winter had just passed, and Bode's body was a little weak from dieting over the winter. It was still very cold, but he was sweating profusely from running. One of his hands was desperately pointing behind him. The more anxious he was, the more he couldn't speak. Hearing Gu Mingming's question, he nodded furiously. Gu Mingming said, Bring me there. Let's talk while we walk. Seeing that Gu Mingming was willing to help, Bode heaved a sigh of relief. He anxiously transformed into a leopard and ran off. Elvis glanced at Gu Mingming and asked, Do we chase after them, or return to the cave to see our sons? Gu Mingming glared at Elvis and said, Didn't you say our son is safe in the cave? Let's go and take a look first. Once we're done, we'll rush back before our son wakes up. Elvis smiled faintly and handed Gu Mingming over to Leah. He transformed into a wolf and stood on all fours. Leah placed Gu Mingming back onto Elvis's back and transformed into a white snow fox. 2 streaks of light, one black and one white, chased after Bode's shadow. Barit and Colin looked at each other, and also transformed into a leopard and a black bear to follow closely behind. The few of them disappeared on the spot in the blink of an eye. The wind on both sides retreated rapidly, showing that Bode was running with all his might. When everyone stopped, they had already reached the entrance of Sandy's cave. The smell of blood permeated the air. Gu Mingming frowned and looked at Bode, asking, What exactly happened? Tell me quickly. Aside from the topic. Chapter 339. Nina wanted to snatch the prey of the first hunt, but Sandy stopped her. Nina then ordered her own males to attack Sandy. Sandy's males tried their best to protect her, but could only let Bode bring Sandy back first. But Leah arranged Bode's intermittent beast language and told Gu Mingming. Taking 2 steps forward, he stood in front of Gu Mingming and said, Sandy's injuries are not light. If you're afraid, wait here, I'll go in and settle it. Gu Mingming clenched her teeth and sneered. Afraid? I'm afraid that Nina, that perverted pheasant, will not die a horrible death. Move aside, don't block me from looking at Sandy. Leah nodded and took half a step back to make a path. Gu Mingming jumped down from Elvis's body. Even if Elvis was the tribe leader, he could not simply enter another female's cave. Other than Gu Mingming, the only other person who could enter as he pleased was Leah the witch doctor. Gu Mingming walked in front while Leah followed closely behind. Elvis, Barit and Colin stood guard outside the cave. They did not speak and just stood guard quietly, each with their own thoughts. The moment Gu Mingming entered the cave, she saw a skinny little bear lying at the corner of the wall. There were many bloody wounds on its body, and its flesh was exposed. The blood on its body flowed all over the ground, and it had already coagulated, sticking its fur to the ground and making it impossible for her to move. Gu Mingming called out softly, Sandy? Is that you? Upon hearing Gu Mingming's call, the little bear raised its head before burying it again, as if it was sad and ashamed. Gu Mingming walked over and stroked Sandy's head gently, comforting her gently. It's all right, don't be afraid. Leah is already here, he can definitely heal you. Moreover, am I not the messenger of the beast deity? I'm very familiar with the beast deity. I'll ask him to protect you so you'll be fine. Don't be afraid, Sandy whimpered a few times and obediently placed her chin on Gu Mingming's leg without moving. Leah had already started treating Sandy's wounds. Sandy was in so much pain that she twitched, but she stubbornly kept her mouth shut and refused to cry out. Gu Mingming's heart ached terribly, but she could not abandon Sandy and immediately run to pinch Nina to death. She had nowhere to vent her anger, so she could only glare at Bode and vent her anger. Sandy is already so injured. Why did you only find me so late? Bode's heart ached too, but his treatment was not as good as Gu Mingming's. He could not even get closer to check on Sandy's injuries, and could only worry helplessly at the periphery. After being yelled at by Gu Mingming, he was like a high school student who was dragged to the disciplinary director's office by the security guards for being late. He lowered his head and explained, Sandy said that you are now the messenger of the beast deity and definitely have a lot of things to do. She didn't want us to bother you because of her. Gu Mingming clenched her teeth. If Sandy was not lying weakly on her leg, she would have kicked Bode over. If he did not fall, she would have kicked him again. Do you have a brain? You can listen to her for other things, but do you want her to mess around when her life is at stake? Let me tell you, Bode, it's fine if nothing happens to Sandy today. But if anything happens to Sandy, I will skin you alive. Bode looked down and sighed. If anything really happens to Sandy, you won't be able to skin me alive. I will rot so badly that not even my bones will be left because of the backlash from the mating contract. Gu Mingming choked and could not say a word. She snorted heavily and adjusted her tone, hugging Sandy's little head and whispering into her ear, Silly Sandy, we are good friends. How can you abandon me just because I am the messenger of the beast deity? If I lose you because I am the messenger of the beast deity, then I won't be the messenger anymore. Whoever wants to be the messenger can be it. Aside from the topic, every time Gu Mingming scolded Bode, I always had the déjà vu of an empress scolding a concubine. Chapter 340. Sandy raised her head and whimpered. Gu Mingming looked at Bode and asked, What did Sandy say? Bode frowned awkwardly and stuttered. Sandy said she likes you the most, no matter whether you are the messenger of the beast deity or not. She wants to stay by your side, Gu Mingming frowned impatiently and said, What An old man speaking in such a slow manner. Can't he even be compared to a mina? He can't even speak properly. Bode lowered his head even more. He did not know why, but he always felt that he was inferior in front of Gu Mingming. Sandy said she could not protect the first prey she offered to you. Please don't be angry. Leah helped Bode translate the rest of the sentence while sewing up Sandy's wound. Gu Mingming sighed. Her eyes filled with heartache. She held Sandy's little face and looked into her dark eyes, saying gently, Let's not talk about the prey first. You hurt my important friend. How are you going to settle this? Sandy shrunk her neck. Even though she had a little bare face, she could not hide her shyness. She whimpered and buried her face into Gu Mingming's knees. Leah turned around and looked at the dumbfounded Bode. He smiled and said, You should be glad that Gu Mingming is not a male, or else, just based on you, I'm afraid you are not even qualified to be a beast pet. Bode nodded his head in agreement. He then took a step forward and bowed to Gu Mingming, saying, Great messenger, thank you for not being a male. Gu Mingming sighed, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Seeing that Leah had already stopped, she guessed that the wound must have been treated. She said, Cut the crap, go and boil a pot of water for me, I want to clean Sandy's wound. Bode said, Let me do this kind of thing. Gu Mingming smirked coldly and said, I entrusted a perfectly fine Sandy to you to take care of, but you ended up taking care of me to this state. You still want me to believe you? Bode pursed his lips and could not say a word. He really could not understand why Sandy was entrusted to him by Gu Mingming. He was the one who fought for Sandy when she came of age. Leah pulled Bode and said, Bring me to see the other males in your family. Sandy is already so injured, the others are probably in a worse state. I'll call someone to take care of this place later. Leah was halfway through his sentence when he suddenly turned to look at Sandy and asked, Sandy, can I let Mingming's subordinates come in? Sandy called out softly, indicating that she had agreed to his request. Leah winked his left eye at Gu Mingming, then brought Bode out with a smile. Gu Mingming instantly understood and whispered into Sandy's ear, Remember, other than pain, Don't say anything else later, do you understand? Sandy did not understand what Gu Mingming meant, but she would always listen to her. So he nodded to show that he understood. As soon as he finished speaking, Colin walked in with a big stone pot. Placing the pot aside, she sat on the ground to start a fire. Her simple and honest face had a solemn and unsmiling expression the entire time. It was a kind of suppressed anger. Gu Mingming smiled faintly. She thought to herself that Nina was not completely useless after all. The demon this time had really come at the right time. Chapter 341. Sandy did not want Gu Mingming or Colin to worry, so she wanted to say that it did not hurt. But when she looked up and saw Gu Mingming winking at her, she recalled what Gu Mingming had instructed her to do just now, so she whimpered pitifully, probably in pain. Gu Mingming had been paying attention to Colin from the corner of her eyes, and indeed he froze the moment he heard Sandy's voice. She nodded her head silently, thinking to herself, although this fool is slow, at least he has feelings for Sandy. So if she succeeds in matchmaking them, it would be considered as a marriage. So she continued, silly Sandy, if Nina snatches anything from you in the future, just give it to her. Look around you. The best fighter is only Bode, a first-level orc. How can he fight against Nina? Although Quentin, a third-level male beast, is not around, but there is still a second-level orc among Nina's partners, right? You know you can't beat her, so just retreat and avoid her in the future. If she wants to snatch your food, just give it to her. If she wants to snatch your beast skin, just give it to her. If she wants to kill you one day, sigh, just accept your fate. Sandy tilted her head, completely not understanding what Gu Mingming meant. She did not say that the previous time? Sandy clearly remembered that she had fought with Nina on the morning of the bacon, and Gu Mingming had taught her that if Nina provoked her again, she would directly transform into a bear and slap her to death. Gu Mingming squinted her eyes, and Sandy whimpered softly. Gu Mingming did not need to translate to know that she was saying pain. Gu Mingming nodded her head in approval, then sighed with a heavy heart, and said, from what I see, you should find a chance this year to choose a second-level male as your partner. Don't care if you like him or not, at least you have someone to support you, so that Nina will have to think twice before bullying you in the future. Sandy wanted to say something, but after mumbling a few times, she could only whimper pain. Gu Mingming muttered to herself, I know. You only mate with males you like, then why don't you tell me? What kind of males do you like? Let me help you choose from the tribe? Or, do you have a suitable candidate in mind? When Gu Mingming asked this, her eyes were fixed on Colin. Although Colin was boiling water with his back facing the two females, his stiff back and ears that involuntarily moved closer to Gu Mingming's side clearly revealed his concern. Sandy was even more confused. Didn't Gu Mingming already guess that she liked Colin in the morning? Why are you asking a question that you already know the answer to? Gu Mingming gave Sandy a look, then acted as if she had suddenly realized something and said, oh, I remember you said you like males like that, right? Colin was speechless. What did that mean, puzzled? Gu Mingming added, all right, don't worry, I will help you find that kind of male now. With that, Gu Mingming winked at Sandy and moved her little head away from her legs. Then she patted Colin's shoulder and said, I'll leave this place to you. Take good care of Sandy for me. If Nina's partner comes to find trouble with her later, beat him to death. If he dies, it'll be on me, understand? Colin's muscles twitched, he clenched his teeth and nodded seriously. Gu Mingming turned around and walked out of the cave, so that Sandy and Colin could be alone. But she had forgotten one thing, which was that she did not tell Sandy other than pain. She could say anything else, aside from the topic. Colin. Sandy, are you hungry? Sandy. Pain. Colin. Sandy, in the future when Nina bullies you, run away and find Gu Mingming or me. I'll protect you, alright? Sandy. Pain. Colin. Sandy, I really like you, how about you accept me as your partner? Sandy. Pain. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.